Well, hello everyone, and welcome to round number 2 of the ADAC GT Masters Esports Championship, powered by NBW Mobility Plus. My name is Connery Maddock. I'm joined as ever by the wonderful Mr. Paul Smith for this event. We're here at the Red Bull Ring to bring you coverage of round number 2 of this ADAC GT Masters Esports Championship. But before we do so, we'll take a look at what happened last time at Oschersleben. Oh, a little bit of it's getting a little bit antsy down here just inside the top 20. There's a big dive down the inside there from Isaac Price over Jeffrey Rietveld. This is coming through the final corner. Isaac Price towards the driver's right-hand side of the circuit there. Rietveld looking to come back at him in towards turn number 1. He's in that Team Redline car on the inside, but Isaac Price will get clear by the time the turn-in point arrives. So Jovski looking down the inside of Rietveld, at least initially coming down in towards turn number 1, but kind of butchered the apex there of the hotel corner. Now Moritz Lohner can dive his way down the inside, and that's a position that Lohner's going to take every day of the week, although Jajowski's going to try and come back at him here around the outside of the Hasserode, but finds no success. The clock expires before he gets to the start-finish line. That will be the final lap. What's the situation going to be for Nikodem Wisniewski? 5 seconds coming out of the final turn. Time expires just as he gets to the line. That's the checkered flag. So I believe that is Nikodem Wisniewski taking the race win here at Oschersleben in the endurance race. He'll have to be around the outside at the Hasserode. Can Kazubon carry the momentum through? Muller commits to the corner. Bunky straight underneath them. He might be able to get one in that Bentley, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's able to get the other as well. He'll get the inside over Kazubon here in towards the triple left, and that's a great move there from Bunky to capitalize on what was going on ahead of him. Starts off on the right foot here in 2021. Moritz Lohner through the final corner to win the sprint race here at Oschersleben. He heads his way across the line in his Porsche. He flashes the lights. He takes the checkered flag for the sprint race. Meanwhile, further back, well, that was a small look there at exactly what went on there in the first race of the season at Oschersleben. A pretty calm affair, all things considered. We're expecting that to be a little bit different here today, let me tell you that. But with one round under our belts, Paul, it seems like this championship has gone off to a great start as we head into this round here at the Red Bull Ring.
Yeah, it was a really surprising round last time at Oschersleben. I thought it was going to be a bit more processional driving, but a few of those drivers out there gave us a really good show. You mentioned it there, Red Bull Ring. This is going to be a different show. There's plenty of places to overtake. It's not a given, it's not easy, but you can make those overtakes around this track. It certainly is going to be one that provides them a great opportunity and gives somebody else a chance of maybe going for a win here.
And of course, if you are unfamiliar with the way the ADAC GT Masters Esports season works, here for 2021, we'll be having a sprint race in the GT3s to start us off. Then we'll have a support race in the GT4s with a couple of different drivers. And then, of course, we'll have our endurance GT3 race a little bit later on in the evening. So that's how things work here on the ADAC GT Masters Esports Championship. Let's have a little look at the entry list, though, for today. You've got, in the GT3 category at least, all of your regular drivers. These are the 32 drivers that had qualified themselves in through the even less 28 drivers qualified themselves through the shootout procedure and gotten themselves permanent slots here in this series. So this is where you see Jack Keithley, Christopher Högfeld, Ness Garcia, Tim Yarshall, all of those names there. But if we cycle things back just a little bit to that second page, you can see those 4 drivers that have gotten themselves a guest starting spot here today.
Yeah, absolutely. So that gives those drivers the opportunity to really show their stuff. They may have not have qualified for the permanent slots throughout the season, but really get to show their mettle out there today and test themselves against the best drivers that are out there in the ADAC GT Masters Esports Championship. I'm really looking forward to seeing how those 4 drivers get on here today.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you don't get these chances too often, and when you're given them, you kind of have to make the most of them. So that's going to be the objective for all those drivers: Vitfoot, Vermeulen, Pinces, Jaeger. All have to really show what they're made of here today to be able to get one up on those permanent drivers. Let's take a look, though, at your points order for GT3s, the main season here in the ADAC GT Masters Esports Championship. We are tied on points between Moritz Lohner and Jacob Brzezinski. 61 points apiece coming out of round number 1. Wisniewski there in P3, just a single point behind those two. So it's almost a 3-way tie for the race lead early on here in the season. As close as you like, Paul.
Certainly, yeah, but it's early in the season, isn't it? You can't really read too much into the championship standings as they are now after 1 week of competition. Once we've had this round and maybe the next round, that's when you start paying attention to the championship standings. But it's given those drivers at the front of the field a really big, good advantage going into the rest of the season. They've got off on the right foot, whereas you look at someone like Banky or Keithley, they've got a little bit of catching up to do, so they need to pick up the form and get some good rounds under their belts.
Yep, they really do, but still plenty of time left in the season to be able to do so. For those drivers, maybe on the edge of the top 5, on the edge of the top 10, still plenty of time for those guys to try and recover their seasons and get them back on the right track. Of course, we have a couple of other little championships going on inside of this one as well. Of course, one of those is the Faber Exposize Fastest Lap Award, which did go to Moritz Lohner from Door Esports at Oschersleben with a 1:22.658 during the race there. And guess what? Well, Moritz Lohner also got the first point on our Pirelli Pole Position Award here as well. So that's what we're going to keep track of throughout the entire season. Who gets fastest laps during the race, and of course, who gets themselves those pole positions to be able to get that Pirelli Pole Position Award at the very end of the season. Having a look then, let's go back to our wonderful faces here before I introduce you to our venue for this evening. That will be, of course, the Red Bull Ring. Paul, you're going to take us through on this introductory or explainer lap here. We'll get that in just a couple of moments. Take a look.
So here we are then, the Red Bull Ring in Spielberg, the Styrian Mountains region. Straight away, heading towards turn number 1, you've got an uphill braking zone, so you can use that to your advantage. Brake light, carry the speed through turn 1 because you need to have that speed all the way uphill towards turn number 2. Following the flow of the track there, you want to head on over to the left-hand side of the track. Again, an uphill braking zone, so even though it's quite a tight hairpin here, can brake quite late into that corner, onto the power nice and smoothly. Again, you need to carry that speed down this back straight as we're heading towards turn number 3. And this is going to be one of the first places where we compare what happens if you get it right and you get it wrong. So you look on the right there, getting it wrong, the back end goes out, you've missed the apex, get on the power, and you'll see on the right hand side there, that arrow is where you would be if you got it right through turn number 3. And in towards turn 4 now, using all the track and then some, carry the speed through the corner. It's quite a high speed circuit is this. Again, using the curbs on the entry into 5 and 6. Use that curb on the outside there through 6, and then get the car over to the left hand side for turn number 7, Rindt. Of course, named after the famous world champion Jochen Rindt. Again, using all of the track, you need to utilize that as much as possible. And here's another place where you need to be careful. Don't hit too much of that inside curb on the right-hand side of turn number 8, the final corner, or else you lose that time there. And that is a lap here of the Red Bull Ring here in Spielberg.
Well then, thank you very much for that one, Paul. It's a great circuit, lots of undulations, lots of opportunities for drivers to try and get themselves past each other as well into some of those heavy braking zones. So a little bit of a change from what we saw at Oschersleben. So qualifying potentially going to be pretty spicy as well because, with lap times being so short, there's more opportunities to get those lap times in before the end of the session. So 10 minutes of qualifying here is about to start, Paul. Just tell me what your expectations are here for this one, because this one has the chance to be a completely different race and completely different races to what we saw at Oschersleben.
Yeah, qualifying isn't going to be quite as significant as we were in round number 1, of course, at Oschersleben. This track, it's a nice wide track here, so there's plenty of room for drivers to go side by side. It's a 4.3 kilometer track as well, so it's not the longest circuit that we're going to go to. And it's really quite a high-speed circuit is this one, certainly a favourite amongst the drivers. Isaac Price, who we'll get to see. I don't believe, unless I'm very much mistaken, that's not a Bentley that we're seeing on screen there. So as we go down into turn number 3, but qualifying is going to be important though. You want to get up to that front couple of rows of the grid, and you can see the queue of traffic all working their way around. There he is. There's Isaac Price up on screen.
Yeah, just a slight glitch there as we'll get ourselves all set up. You can see the drivers getting themselves slowed down coming into the final sector as well. This is Monza F1 qualifying all over it as they try to find themselves a space and try to find themselves the perfect start to the lap here, making sure that they have a slipstream from some drivers ahead of them as well. But across the line they come, with 8 minutes left remaining in the session. Let's see exactly how the qualifying order stacks up here at the end of this one. So, yeah, I mean, you went through the track guide already here as they head their way through turn number 1 and then that long run down the hill, then back up it in towards turn number 2, which will possibly be one of, if not your main overtaking opportunity here today, as well as turn number 3, of course.
I will say that you will see these drivers really use and abuse the track limits here. Connery knows my feelings on track limits about this, but we'll let the drivers drive within the limits of what the admins of the series and the race stewards, of course, live race stewarding, don't forget. So if they're not happy with something to see out there on track, then they will look at that and look at a penalty. Jacob Brzezinski, the purple first sector, you can see, and purple second sector, so he's absolutely on one here as a Williams Esports driver.
Yeah, that's compared to a lot of the drivers ahead of him that have been able to set second times here. That's just how things work here on RaceRoom. And now he's going to be heading his way down into the final sector, into that second to last corner. You can see someone behind him went better through sector 1. That's why his purple sector 1 turns into a green sector 1. But it's still a purple sector 2, but he ruins the final corner and has to take the tow back towards pit lane. So that's the first lap abandoned there by Jacob Brzezinski. We've got Leonard Koripner setting the fastest lap time so far by 67 thousandths of a second over Isaac Price, and then all of a sudden Pejic and Lohner decides that they want to take the front row. Pejic, of course, the driver inside of that track guide that you so lovingly commentated, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Porsche driver going along and heading uphill once again onto the brakes in that Mahle Racing team car. 29 thousandths of a second off of the fastest time in sector 1. There's plenty of time for that Porsche to do well. And Pejic, we saw how good he was at Oschersleben. The fastest driver, he's trying to best his time so far, and we'll get to see just a moment's time what sector 2 will be like, whether there'll be any improvement. Comes into the left-hander, just to these sweeping left-handers, go downhill and then hit the brakes, just tap the brakes and quicker through sector 2. So hooking it up in sector 2, keep it going like this and you've possibly got a good lap on the cards here for Page, as Moritz Lerner, by the way, goes up into second place. Forget that, Jack Keithley now.
Yeah, so Keithley putting in a very, very good time there as Page, he rounds his way through the final corner to see if he can make an improvement. Like you said, Purple through Sector 2, but what's the Sector 3 time going to be like for Mr. Page? It's okay, so he still remains inside of P1 there and goes a little bit faster than he previously went, 83 thousandths of a second now ahead of Jack Keithley. So that's this is the early times now coming in. Now we're in towards the second half of the session here. Most drivers have been able to set themselves that sort of banker, that baseline to build off of coming later on into this session now. But I'm looking at certain names like towards the bottom of the order that have not set times just yet, like Kevin Siggy, Nikodem Wisniewski, Jacob Brzezinski, Christopher Hergfeld, Leon Rudinger, Adam Pinces. They have all not been able to set a valid qualifying time just yet here. So, again, pressure's on them.
Yeah, I mean, we saw this last time out, didn't we, with Yarshel at Oschersleben, how he left it late. Kevin Siggy, Team Redline driver, always an impressive driver is Kevin. And he'll be pushing on his about almost half a second off of that pole position time in his Audi R8 to the final corner. Again, careful not to touch that inside curb too much. And then out he goes down across the line, and that lap time put him 14th. He won't be happy with that. He'll be back out, no doubt.
Yeah, he will be. Here's your, well, double champion so far, looking to try and defend his title for a third time this season. Well, technically second time, so it's his third championship that he would win if he was able to get to the top of the order at the end of the final round of this season. Moritz Lohner, fantastic driver indeed, multidisciplined as well. He's not just fast here on RaceRoom, he's just fast everywhere that he decides to race. So it's absolutely brilliant to see. But remember, last season, he won the championship without winning any single race. He's already gone one better than that this season, winning the sprint race last time. So let's hope Moritz Lohner can keep it together and show the sorts of consistent performances like he did last season, because that's what won in the championship. It wasn't getting up into that top of the podium. It was just a consistent top five throughout all of the season that delivered the goods.
And we touched on it last week, didn't we? About how you've got to be consistent in a championship like this. It's no good being up and down with your performances. You need to keep it consistently up there. And it doesn't matter if you don't win a race. If you go on and hold on and get the most points, look at that, 1,000th of a second quicker through Sector 2. So Lerner is pushing this one all the time, and he's giving his teammates behind a bit of a tow as well. So don't miss out on that one either. Lerner into that penultimate corner at Rindt, and then the final corner. Oh, hit that curb hard. It doesn't seem to have slowed him down. What will his time be?
Across the line, Purple Sector 1, Sector 2, Sector 3 is also good, but not good enough, it seems, to get up into the top spot. So, not sure what was going on there, as Moritz Lohner only P3 here for the moment. Page just 47 thousandths of a second ahead of him. He's only 1 thousandth of a second behind Wisniewski, so missing out on a podium by just the slimmest of margins here is Moritz Lohner at the moment, but he's already gone through faster through Sector 1 on this lap.
Yeah, he certainly has. So he's obviously gaining on his own times here. He's gaining well. Here's Wisniewski then across the line to start another flying lap. But the Williams Esports driver on his own pretty much there on track just well, I was about to say one car in front of him. Not anymore. So he's got a clear track, so he doesn't need to worry about anybody messing up in front of him. But it does mean that he's not got no slipstream. And Jack Keithley abandons the lap, heads to pit road. There's not any time to start another flying lap, so you might as well just practice your pit entry, because of course in that endurance race they've got to take tyres.
Here we go then. This is do or die for Moritz Lohner here. Wisniewski has abandoned the lap. And Moritz Lohner has another attempt to try and get himself up onto pole position. It will be the second in a row here this season. Looking for a perfect record here in qualifying. Across the line he goes. Let's see what the time is. I don't think it's going to be good enough. He remains in P3 at the very, very dying moments of the session. But as always here in RaceRoom, we do have to wait just a couple of moments to make sure the qualifying order is actually accurate. But Marko Pejic on pole position for the sprint race here, with Nikodem Wisniewski on the front row as well there, Paul.
And Pejic just set a faster lap time as well, right at the death of qualifying. I'm impressed with Isaac Price there, up in 6th place. He had a nightmare last time out. He's trying to really step up for this race.
You see those towards the very, very back, the likes of Erhan Jajowski, Adam Pinces, Axel Vermeulen, and Luciano Witzvogt. So lots of your, of course, your invited drivers into this round via the wildcard system towards the back. I think that's kind of what you would expect here in terms of the skill levels involved. But we have a little bit of a warm-up here just to sort of calm our nerves. The drivers can take themselves some deep breaths as well after what could have, well, was a hectic qualifying session for a good few of them. It just gives them the chance to clear their heads and look forward to the race to come.
Yeah, make sure that everything's in order. Make sure you've got your race set up on and enough fuel for the race. This last week I discovered what it's like to run out of fuel on the last lap. That's another story. But yeah, these drivers, it just gives them that little bit of preparation time. If they weren't happy with how they were in qualifying, just get out there in this 7 minutes now just to get your eye in, see maybe the race setup worked better than the qualifying setup, and you make sure you're comfortable in that car heading into the race, because it's first race, you don't have the most amount of time to get yourself up the field, so it's important that you feel comfortable in that car and with the setup on board.
Yeah. Comfortability is the name of the game here, but with everyone in such close proximity, especially in qualifying, and we'll get to see it during the race as well with the sheer amount of slipstream trains that we'll get, it's going to be very hard to feel comfortable out there with cars right up your trumpet, and of course you are all over the back of the rear bumper of the car in front of you as well a lot of times. So it's very, very congested out there in these sorts of races, but again, we still got 5 minutes left remaining before we get the gridding procedure underway. So if you remember how Oschersleben raced just that 1 week ago, very short break in between races here, which I do want to talk about, Paul. Usually the gap between races here are around about a month, but for these first 2 races, they're only a week apart. So that must change the preparation slightly for the drivers, considering that you only have that week to really prepare for the Red Bull Ring.
Yeah, it limits the amount of time you get to spend to work on a setup, work on the strategy, work on what works for the individual cars, and yeah, you're limited with that amount of time that you've got to spend in this one. But sometimes that actually works out better for some drivers, because you can really fall foul of getting a bit, I don't know, looking too much into the setups and changing minute details and thinking, oh, well, this one's better, oh, well, this one's better. And you end up working yourself into a corner where you then get to the race session and find out that somebody who's maybe spent just a few days on their setup and got it in a good spot, rather than overthinking everything, is then able to outperform you. So you've got to really be careful with that. That's one of the issues of the last corner, by the way, there that you saw. Hitting that curb, clattering over that curb there, will unsettle the car. It will spin you round. We may see that a bit in the race. I see another car has had an issue there, one of the Mercedes cars. So we will see that as being a potential issue here in the race, and it will give people opportunities to move forward. Again, like Oschersleben, if a mistake's made, you've got to take advantage of it. It's just that here, if you're the one who makes the mistake, it does give you a chance to be able to fight back in that one.
Yeah, it's one of the main differences between this track and last week. That you're not sort of getting freight trained down the inside like you are at Oschersleben if you do step that foot out of line, and you're having to always try to negotiate with other drivers, trying to find a gap to slot back in on, and the more time you spend offline, the more positions that you're losing, and it's a horrible, horrible situation to be in. But maybe, like you said, Red Bull Ring a little bit more forgiving in the grand scheme of things here. And fantastic racetrack. Of course, it's one of my favorites for sure. I mean, people who have heard me commentate before will know that Suzuka is my favorite, and of course, you know, no one can debate me on that one. But Red Bull Ring can really get up there and fight amongst you know, some, well, the tier list of tracks, I suppose.
I'll have to take you to Alton Park one time. The debate will be over at that point. But anyway, yeah, Red Bull Ring. It's so much fun. It's just great to be able to jump into one of these cars here and just blast around. It's a fun track. It's quite a simple track when you look at it on a map. I mean, only 8 corners to the track. But when you get out there and you get doing laps there, you realise that the undulation, the way that, like here, you're plunging downhill into the left-hander, so you're really loading up that front right, going through the through the left-hander there, through that fast S's section. So there are challenges to this track. It is a real driver's track. Even though it's such a simple track, it's one of those that set some drivers apart from the others.
It really, really does, and I'm looking forward really to the sort of the opening portions of this race, though, because it could potentially, as with most openings to races, get a little bit crazy out there. But what an opportunity, though, for Marko Pejic from pole position. He ended up coming out of round 1 about 4th in points. There, not too far behind Wisniewski, Brzezinski, and Lona, who currently head up the championship. But if he can convert his qualifying pace into race pace here, and he's able to pull away from the rest of the field, which is going to be very, very difficult, mind you, at a track such as this, where the draft is so strong. But it's still an amazing opportunity for the German to try and come out ahead in terms of points and lead the championship coming into the 3rd round.
Yeah, tremendous opportunity here for him, and of course he's put his name forward for the Pirelli pole position award, hasn't he? So it's one to Lerner, one to Pejic. So I think we're going to see them and maybe one or two others really duking it out through the rest of the season for that pole position award. But this is a beauty of this series and these cars. Different tracks suit different cars better than others, and you will see some cars come to the fore, like the Audi's not really looking the strongest of cars around here today. I'm saying that in qualifying in one lap. I mean, how it runs in the race, then that's a different thing. We'll have to wait and see, but we'll have long to wait now.
Not long at all. Time expires here in warm-up. We can get the gridding procedure underway. And, of course, you know, like we mentioned last time, this is going to be a little bit different compared to what a lot of people have seen here on RaceRoom. So it's technically in the server a standing start, but we will do a manual rolling start. So when you see the lights go green, don't be fooled. They're not racing just yet. They'll pull off the starting grid, get formed up, do an entire pace lap, and then they will get the actual race start command from the race control. So that's the situation there. So again, like I said, it's a little bit different to what most people are used to here on RaceRoom, but it's the system that we have here. We've added another 2 minutes to each race to be able to facilitate this pace lap.
Certainly have, and it's a great addition to the series, having that manual pacing lap. It just means that the drivers have got to be really able to be on their toes here and listen to the race control rules, and of course pay attention to the pre-race briefing, of course, because they've got to make sure that they go single file to a point, and then they will double file and then head through the final couple of corners, double file, wait for that admin command, and then they will head off. So we're not going to see a race start here. The drivers will just calmly pull away on their pace lap now.
Absolutely, a very calm affair coming off of those starting grids. They'll be able to still weave to try and get tyre temperatures in and bring those tyres up to pressure as well. That's absolutely not a problem in the eyes of the stewards, as long as you do it safely and you don't make contact with another car. Yeah, this is this is where things come to a head now. You can see the run through of the starting grid here. You see Marko Pejic right at the very front of the field in the Porsche, and Nikodem Wisniewski second place in the Bentley. Moritz Lohner, two-time defending champion, P3. Jack Keithley, P4. Florian Hasse, P5. Isaac Price, P6. Jeffrey Ritzfeld, the highest placed BMW in P7 here today. And Tim Yarshell, P8. Alexander Dorneden, P9. And Leonard Krippener will round out the top 10 there. So both Porsches and Bentleys being very, very strong at this circuit. You mentioned the Audis not faring too well. There's a good cluster of them down near the back of the starting grid, but the highest place Audi is Florian Hasse in 5th place at the moment, so maybe there is a little hidden potential in that car.
Yeah, maybe Florian's managed to unlock the potential in that car and been able to work his magic. Of course, very talented driver. But then again, every single driver on this grid is very talented. You have to be to make it into this series because it is such a stacked field. But now, here we go. Drivers are going to go 2 by 2 at the start of the race. And they will await the orders of race control to be the ones who will let these drivers go loose.
So then, we're all getting ready, we're all getting set. The drivers, of course, have to wait for that command, like you mentioned, Paul, to get the race going. If they go before, then they will be subject to a penalty after steward's investigation. But let's hope it doesn't come to that, and we can have an absolutely fantastic start to the race. Round number 2 here, the sprint race of the ADAC GT Masters Esports Championship at the Red Bull Ring is about to go racing. They get the command. We are go, go, go here at the Red Bull Ring, and it looks like Wisniewski's got a lightning start on the way down in towards turn number 1. Jack Keithley's been able to stick it up his inside, though. That's a crazy, crazy start there. Pejic dropping back through the order, almost getting swamped there by a good couple of cars. What happened to Pejic on the start? The pole position sitter now trying to hang on for P5 as there's a bit of a dooring.
They're going 3, 4, 5 wide down towards turn number 2. It was absolute chaos on the exit of turn 1. There was a Bentley half spun around through turn 1, and well, absolute carnage. As you say, Pejic down to 5th place. He just didn't get away from the start. Everybody else just got the jump on him. Speaking of getting the jump, Jack Keithley now to the head of your field, ahead of Wisniewski. So drama on the opening lap here, and it's only going to come thick and fast now.
It's a big old cluster here inside the mid-pack, isn't it? Absolutely crazy stuff. Meanwhile, Alexander Dorneden looking on the inside of Marko Pejic, looking to put your pole position sitter down another position. And it seems like Marko Pejic is rattled at the moment. He's making mistakes left, right, and center. And Dorneden's now found his way to the inside here, in towards the penultimate corner. Is he able to put the pole sitter down one more position? Yes, he is. And now here comes Martin Barner as well. It's all just unraveling here for Pejic as he gets spit out into the runoff. And now he's going to lose a whole bunch of positions. He's spun round.
He's all the way almost to the back of the field there. My goodness, Pejic. And lap 1 from hell there for him. He's down now to 28th in this race, because he's just been overtaken by Pfeiffer as well. This is just an absolute nightmare of a start. The 2 Williams Esports drivers, there's no love lost between these 2 because Keithley's hanging on for dear life. Moritz Lohner's just lurking, waiting for an opportunity here.
That was a crazy start there from Jack Keithley, though, capitalizing on Pejic sluggish off the line. He's able to stick it up the inside of his teammate as well, and through turn 1. They're still fighting it out amongst each other, though. Coming through the right-handers here. Wisniewski really trying to lean on his teammate here. He'll be able to get to the outside here. No, there's no overlap. Looking for the cut back off the corner. Not going to be successful as Keithley's just going to park it on the inside there through the left-hander at turn 4. Now in towards turn number 5. Then the right-hand flick into turn number 6. Keithley's able to hold on, and well, there's always two sides of every coin. It was a horrible start for Pejic, but what a start for Keithley.
Look at Reitveld behind as well, putting the pressure on Moritz Lerner in that Porsche. The BMW coming alive, it seems, in this race session. So it may not have suited qualifying, but it's certainly suiting the race here. But I don't think there's going to be a straight panel on any of these cars on this grid at all by the end of this race. They've been going at it absolutely hammer and tongs. It's brilliant to see in the commentary box. I don't think it's so much fun for those drivers out there on track.
I guess it depends on the driver's exact perspective. If you're hemorrhaging positions, then it's maybe not so much fun. But you can see a slightly defensive line there in towards turn number 2 there for Jack Heathley. Just not taking the ultimate wide line possible, your normal track entry to that corner. Just positioning the car another like sort of half a car length towards the middle to really put Wisniewski off of trying to make that move happen. Speaking of moves, deep around the outside, Moritz Lerner in the Porsche trying to make things happen, trying to get one step on the podium higher, hanging out around the outside of the Bentley will gift him the inside for turn number 4. Let's see if your two-time champion can get anything done. He's clear by half a car length, and now he's clear by a full car length.
Oh, he's going to be compromised, though, through the left and the right there. That's going to allow Wisniewski to be able to get back onto his tail and put the pressure on. That Bentley looks so quick down the straights, but through the corners, that Porsche, it does look nice and nimble compared to that Bentley. Well, shorter wheelbase, and that will be helping him out no ends, really. Coming across the line then. So Jack Keith will be happy with that. He's got a 0.6 of a second lead. But he won't like seeing Lerner behind him because it's no longer his teammate there who can maybe help him out.
Yeah, absolutely. We're having a look to see if there are any stewards investigations that need to be done. Nothing has come through just yet. No decisions, no investigations. So we'll let you know in case any of that happens, because I know there are little bits of contact here and there down in the mid-pack that might need to be looked at. But for right now, stewards not too busy, which is always what you love to see here in these sorts of races. Relatively clean starts. Let's have a look back to positions deeper in the pack, though, because I saw someone back here going side by side just for a couple of moments. There's Kevin Siggy here involved in amongst a group of cars involving Isaac Price, and behind him Thibaut Casbon, Leonard Kripner and Gianmarco Fiduci deciding to fight things out for positions well, a little bit outside the top 10.
Yeah, you see there, Siggy's trying to make his way past Isaac Price. We saw last time out how aggressive Isaac can be out there on track. And he will give you space if you get alongside him, but it will literally just be a car's width. He will not give you any more than that. Siggy, probably he's raced against Isaac for many a year, so he knows what he's like. Casabon behind as well, the Frenchman in the Audi. It's not really working out for them. As we mentioned, only Florian Hasse, and even then, Hasse has dropped down to 10th place out of all of this. So, yeah, he started off in 5th place, down to 10th. It's not been a good day for the Audis out there today.
Well, here we go then. That's, well, no opportunities just yet here for Kevin Siggy over Isaac Price. Meanwhile, a lot of fighting ahead of these guys. Jacob Brzezinski, Martin Barner. We're going wheel to wheel through turn 2 there, and now on this long run. Let's see if the slipstream can help out any here on the way down into the downhill right-hander. Let's see, no one diving to the inside just yet. And, well, the status quo is maintained in the battle here for P7, 8, and 9, respectively. I mean, you can also count 10, 11, and 12 in this as well, for all intents and purposes. But, yeah, Brzezinski trying to move forward at this point. Drive-through penalty for Nikodem Wisniewski, though. That is for ignoring slow down warnings. So he's going to have to take that, and yeah, that's going to cycle him all the way back because everyone's still kind of stacked up close together.
And that is one of your championship contenders. Takes it straight away. I mean, that's not the most conventional of pit entries, if I must say, but he made it. That's the main thing. So he's going to drop his way down the field. The pit lane here, it does cut the inside of turn 1, but because you're going so slowly anyway, I mean, you look at how close this field is, he's just going to drop and drop like a stone in a lake, and yeah, that's not looking good for this opening race here. And of course, this race, wherever they finish outside of the top 10, they will have that as their race start position for the endurance race.
Door to door, Isaac Price, Kevin Siggy. Siggy just squeaks ahead by a slither of a car length there, but the Bentley's going to come back at him down the inside here. They're side by side ahead of these guys as well, between Brzezinski and Varner as well. So there's so many places to look at here to try and find battles. Here's the battle ahead for P6 at the moment. Brzezinski on the inside trying to wrestle the position away from Varner. They make a little bit of contact through the apex there. Brzezinski still trying to get it done on the inside. They'll have to go wheel to wheel through the chicane here. Has Brzezinski got momentum coming off the corner here to be able to get ahead? He has not. But Varner just lifts out and gets up behind him a little bit there. He didn't want to go too wide through the penultimate corner.
And look who's loitering behind them as well. We saw how opportunistic Banky was last time out at Oschersleben. One little mistake and Banky could be saying, thank you very much, I'll gain a position there. I mean, Varner did just completely launch over the inside of the curb on the final corner on the inside. So Varner's pushing the track of his car to the absolute limit here in this race. A Banky right now for Door Esports, putting the pressure on Varner in front. Varner's in that tricky situation that we mentioned last week as well, attacking in front but having to defend from behind as well. Banky's not going to worry too much about behind because it is one of his compatriots as well behind him in Hassa, who has actually moved up into 9th place, so slowly starting to recover in that Audi. Still, tremendous action here in the opening of this race. We're only reached halfway.
Yeah, a lot more action-packed than round number 1, let me tell you that. And, well, maybe these drivers can give us a show for the end of the race as well, that we were kind of robbed of there at one of the races at Oschersleben. Let's have a check-in behind, though, because Kazubon and Siggy are now going wheel-to-wheel through turn 5 and 6, and Siggy coming out ahead in that instance, as it was Kazubon who was trying to find his way by and try and secure himself a 12th place position here, but not going to find any success and has to just hang out behind for now. But the thing is, at this track there is ample opportunity for you to be able to get your way by, so even with 9 minutes left remaining, it's still not too much of a panic yet about getting stuck anywhere.
Yeah, Moritz Lerner, by the way, at the front has slowly been closing up on Jack Keithley. In fact, he's right under the rear wing of Jack Keithley, putting the pressure on. He's got the slipstream, trying to go the outside into turn 2. That doesn't always work out. You can get pushed and squeezed, and that's exactly what Keithley's doing. Oh my goodness, there's not an inch between those two drivers as they come out of turn 2, and they've got to be careful because Reitfeld is there as well. Tremendous action here from the Red Bull Ring.
It's great stuff, but Jack Keithley is able to hold on for now. Has Lerner found a line underneath him? Yes, he has. They make contact, they bang doors, but they're able to hold it together in towards turn 4. Rietveld all over the back of this. He's looking to try and pick up the pieces if this all goes sour ahead of him.
I haven't seen this much contact since I last played rugby. That tells you how physical this race has been. As I said earlier, it's great to watch. Lerner trying to show his nose, and now Reitfeld right there in the Redline car. So it's Williams, Dorr and Redline, 1, 2, 3. Such big names in the world of esports and in sim racing. It's great to see them here competing on RaceRoom in the ADAC GT Masters Esports Championship. Again, into turn 1. This is where Lerner needs to carry the speed through turn 1, use the slipstream of the car in front. Yarshal got it all wrong through turn 1, so he's going to be under a little bit of pressure. Lerner is the one putting the pressure on.
He is. Let's have a look then up in towards turn 2. You can see how scared Jack Keithley is about a move. He moved towards the middle of the track a little bit more again. A little bit of a love tap to the rear end of that Bentley from the Porsche as they exited turn 2, and a flash to the lights from Lerner as well. He's trying every single trick in the book to try and get by here and gain the advantage. Here's the committed move to the outside once again for turn 3, but again can't find a way around. And well, he'll try again on the outside of turn 4, but not, you know, that one's gonna go a begging. It's not a very high percentage success rate move, that one. And Rietveld is just sitting there in the BMW, just being patient. He knows how these races turn out sometimes. If these guys make contact, have a bit of a bigger accident, then he'll be able to slip his way through.
We saw how Lerner was able to use the outside line through 3 earlier on in the race to make a move, but Rietveld now is deciding now is the time to pull the trigger. You can't really make a move through that last corner. It's one that always begs for a crash. Thankfully, they don't make contact through there, but yeah, the last corner, it's not really an overtaking spot unless you are completely alongside the car that you're battling with. But this is the place up into turn 2, but they've all spread out just that little bit this lap, so maybe not making a move into 2.
Yeah, not this time around, but I get the feeling there's going to be plenty of that in a couple of laps' time as we get towards the very end of this race. We're inside of 6 minutes left to go, and it's basically all to play for when it comes to those podium spots. Moritz Lohner just 0.2 of a second behind Jack Keithley, and he's so much better on the brakes as well. Makes contact with Keithley into the corner. It's caused a bit of a chain reaction behind as well, as Tim Yarshell's been able to find the inside over Jeffrey Rietveld. They're going to scrap over P3, as there's still an attempted scrap for P1 as well. Now it's wheel-to-wheel for P2 as Rietveld tries to get himself up onto the second step of the podium in the dying moments of this race. He's got the inside for turn 5, but can he swing it around the outside enough for turn 6? Yes, he can, and that's a couple of positions lost from Lohner because Yarshell's found his way through, and now Dornaden's knocking on the door.
Yeah, Rietveld really gave Lohner the old shoulder barge through turn number 5, and that unsettled his car and has dropped him down, so that's why he lost so many positions. But right now, Jack Keithley just looks like a sitting duck at the front of your field right now. He's just creating the hole in the air for the rest of this gaggle of cars to work their way through, and he's just patiently defending. He's doing a really good job so far. But next up now, it's Rietveld and Yarshell, and Rietveld straight away on the attack.
Yeah, he'll try and commit to the outside here. Yarshell, where does he place his car? He tries to get to the inside as well to be able to cause the Redline car just a little bit of a problem coming through turn 2 there, but now on the brakes in towards turn 3 in just a couple of moments' time as Rietveld looks to the outside again. Another defensive line from Jack Keithley as there's been a move being made in the background as Lohner tries to work his way through, but it looks like Rietveld's overcommitted to the corner and has now allowed Tim Yarshell to get through up into P2 now as they go side by side, Dornaden and Lohner behind.
Yeah, get your ticket at the deli counter. It's your turn now, Yarshell. It's called your number, and he's moved forward in second place. And now he will have a go for that top step of the podium. And Keithley is doing exactly all he needs to do. Defending to turn 2, defending to turn 3. Doing nothing wrong at all. It's everybody else who seems to be falling by the wayside.
That does seem to be the case. Just under 3.5 minutes across the line. Just a handful of laps to go here in this one. No, of course, no moves into turn 1. Not really the most favoured overtaking spot, but it's all about maximising your run down the back straight to be able to make the magic happen into turn 2. That's what Jack Keithley has done quite expertly there. It's going to be a run for Tim Yarshell regardless. Let's see if he's able to get to the inside here. No, he can't, as Dornaden goes for the dive over Rietveld for P3 here. So still everything in question. We have no idea which order these guys are going to come across the line in.
If these drivers have their way, upside down sliding across the finish line, I think is going to be the way they go. Lerner to the outside. It's not going to work out this time, and he's forced wide in all of that. And here comes Brzezinski now. Look at how the 6th place driver has just waltzed up to the back of these drivers. It was a 5-car scrap, now it's a 6-car scrap for the lead.
It is, and the longer this goes on and the more fiercely they fight, the more 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th parties get themselves involved in this one, and that can cause a little bit of a few problems further down the line. as they swing themselves into the final couple of corners now. And with time starting to become an issue for these drivers, especially for Moritz Lohner, if he wants to try and recover a couple more points from this race. Of course, he was fighting for the race lead not too long ago, but a mistake meant that the freight train went through on him, and now he's down in that 5th spot. But yeah, everything can still change. Everything is up for grabs here. Well, Jack Heatley can't rest on his laurels here. He has to still drive 110% to the end here and get those defensive moves completed. Otherwise, it's just going to get robbed away from him.
I will say I'm impressed with Yarshell's driving this race, really doing a good job to move his way forward in all of this battle into the 2 Bentleys and then BMW with a further Bentley and Porsche is the top 5. There are plenty of these big lumbering Bentleys out there, of course. Built by M Sport is the Bentley, and certainly do a good job of it. They make it strong as well up there in Cumbria, and I'm not surprised by that. They do actually still provide World Rally cars for Ford. So they've got plenty of experience of building strong, tough cars, and that's what we're seeing now, as these cars have been absolutely knocked hammer and tongs all the way through this race. Connery, we're heading towards the start of the final lap. Time running out for Yarshell.
This is it then. Out of the final corner for the penultimate time, crossing the line with 1 lap to go. Keithley has done so well to hold on over the course of this race, despite many challenges behind him, trying to get up all over his back bumper and find lines on the inside and the outside, but he has to hold on for 1 more lap. You can see the slight weaving coming down the back straight here on the way in towards turn 2. This is Yarshell's best run that he's had. Here comes Keithley defending the inside. Yarshell trying to find a line through. There's a little bit of contact through the apex of the corner here. Has Yarshell got any sort of run coming off the corner to make something happen into turn 3? I don't think he has. Rietveld also knocking on the door here as well. He might be looking for P2 here as he looks to the outside into turn 3. That downhill braking zone side by side behind these guys between Dorneden and Lohner, as well as Lohner still not able to squeak through on his compatriot. But now this is where the overtaking opportunities get a little thin towards the middle sector and the very end of this lap. Jack Keithley might have done just about enough to hold on into this one, but he has to keep it together coming through the chicane, the turn 5 and turn 6, and now just 2 more corners to go for the British driver, and he will be the winner of the sprint race here at the Red Bull Ring in the ADAC GT Masters Esports Championship. It ends like this then. Jack Keithley leads them through the final corner to win the sprint race here at the Red Bull Ring after a stellar performance from all of your top 6 drivers.
That was absolutely tremendous stuff. Really, really entertaining racing. Of course, there was plenty of entertaining racing going on further down. Fortunately, we weren't able to bring you it because there was just that much happening at the front of your field. Swapping positions left, right and centre. That was tremendous. Hats off. Little tip of the hat to these drivers out there for putting on a tremendous display.
That was an incredible, incredible show. And, well, that was the sprint race. That was just 20 minutes of action. We've got our endurance race a little bit later on involving a scheduled pit stop. But there's the unofficial order. Jack Keithley wins from Yarshell, from Rietveld, from Dorneden, from Lohner. What could have been for Lohner, though? He went from battling for the lead to battling for 4th and 5th place there at the very end. Jacob Brzezinski also a front runner early on, just falling off the pace a little bit. Martin Barner, P7, Ben Spanky, P8, Florian Hasse, P9, Mark Gassner, P10 here today. As you look through the rest of the field, Wisniewski also having problems as well of a, well, not acknowledging the slowdowns nature as he gets himself a drive-through penalty here at the end of that one. But yeah, those are the unofficial results there, Paul. We'll bring ourselves back to the land of the living when it comes to our lovely faces. But yeah, man, that was craziness. That is what the ADAC GT Masters Esports Championship is about, and I want more of it.
Well,
we will get
more of it. Yeah, absolutely. We've got a GT4 race to go first, and that'll be, if last week is anything to go by, then that'll be a tremendous race. But yeah, That endurance race, I whet my appetite as that sprint race there. Piech as well, after his issue on lap one. I mean, can you get a worse lap one than starting on pole position, getting swamped by the front of the field, and then having an instant into the final corner, dropping all the way back to finish 17th in that race? I think it's a good recovery drive, but he'll be absolutely livid at that, at what happened at the start of that race. As you said, he seemed flustered in that opening lap, Connery, and it really did seem just an absolute nightmare for him out there.
It did, and that's how things can just come undone if you're not ready for a race start like that. You get rattled by someone diving down the inside, trying to go for that first place. You lose the position, then you're having to try and overcompensate for that. You know, driving a little bit harder, trying to make up for lost time. But the thing is, that just piles on in terms of the mistakes, and they just keep happening. You get drivers behind are also looking for an opportunity to get their way through, and they do so. And all of a sudden, you're just in an unstoppable amount of momentum backwards through the field, which takes a very, very good driver to deal with, stabilize, and then make progress forwards.
Yeah, and that's it. You make the point exactly there. You've got to, when a mistake like that happens, you've got to just say, right, let's write that off. It's a new race start. Let's go out there and let's just do what I did that got me to pole position in the first place. Get into that zone again and just work your way through the field. And fortunately enough for him, he's at a track where you can move your way through this field. It certainly gave him the opportunities to move forward. And as I say, 17th at the end, not the world's worst finish, but when you're starting on pole position, you need to be converting those opportunities.
Yeah, I am having to avert my gaze a little bit away from the camera, whereas I'm also having to get myself into the next session because I am also producing the broadcast. But yeah, I mean, we move on now into the GT4 events, which can potentially be a bit of a different beast as well. So, you know, they had given us a little bit of action in the race at Oschersleben, but I think this is the event where they're gonna come alive and also go absolutely toe to toe, just like these GT3 drivers did.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, if you thought lap one was crazy in that GT3 race, we've certainly got something big coming in this GT4 race. That's for sure. A little bit less power, certainly less downforce in these cars, so you'll have longer braking zones into those hard braking zones into the hairpin at turn 2 and down into turn 3. So a bit more opportunity for people to try and make moves there. The longer the braking zone, the more that you can have an opportunity to make those moves. So definitely we could see a few more positions changing in this race with the nature of the GT4 car. So definitely, I'm looking forward to this one. Hopefully, it won't be an Audi fest. I hope that we get a bit more, more variation in cars compared to last time out.
Well, given I am in the server and I can see what cars have been picked, I think your prayers have not been answered, Paul,
No.
Unfortunately, as it is a vast majority Audis. But we have a few more Lotuses than we had last round. We had one Lotus last round. We now have 1, 2, 3, 4 Lotuses this time. No KTM,
What is the correct plural of Lotus? Is it Loti?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, mention in the chat if you know. Like I think it is Loti, in fact. But then again, isn't it from like Greek or whatever? I can't even remember. But yeah, not so much variety in terms of the car manufacturers coming into this one. Gotta keep my composure. But still, it doesn't mean that the racing is going to be all the same either. It's going to be crazy out there. Emre Can, of course, won the race at Oschersleben. He's looking competitive coming into this one, at least from what I can see in the practice times as well. So he's going to be the one to beat coming into this, is the Turkish driver.
I was so impressed with Can last time out. Just was out at the front and just walked away from the rest of the field. While everybody else was scrapping over second place, he was there saying, I don't need to associate myself with that. I don't need to trouble myself with second place. I'm just going for one place, and that's forward. And did a tremendous job last time out. So be interested to see whether he can keep that up at this venue, of course, as we keep on mentioning, a completely different venue to Oschersleben. And the slipstream has more of an effect around here. It's less of a technical track. So, yeah, it really will be interesting to see whether Chian can hold on to that advantage that he had last time out, or whether somebody else comes through and to give themselves the opportunity of moving forward to the head of the GT4 field.
One driver I'm particularly interested in with that regards, though, is Risto Caput, because he had an absolutely awful start at Oschersleben while being in an amazing position to, fight for the race lead. He got himself a little bit of contact, he got himself cycled back through the field, and then he wasn't really able to recover just, because of Oschersleben being not a great track for overtaking. But here, if he's able to keep that first lap clean, I think he's probably the main driver that could give Emre Can a run for his money.
Certainly could. And as I say, that's where the slipstream, where everything comes into effect here and gives you more opportunities. That run, I mean, we saw how strong the slipstream was in the GT3s up between turn 1 and 2. That is pretty much the fastest that you are on this track into really heavy braking, uphill braking into turn number 2. So there are opportunities for them, but the rest of the grid out there as well, they'll be wanting to try and get an opportunity because, of course, there's so much at stake for these drivers here in this GT4 support series. It's not just a support series just for the fun of it. There is real prizes to be won at the end of it, being a position in next year's ADAC GT Masters Esports Championship.
Yeah, we can't forget that. That's a very, very lucrative prize as well, because we saw the shootout. We saw the shootout process to qualify into the ADAC GT Masters Esports Championship, and we saw it was just so competitive. It was absolutely crazy. So if you can secure your space in the series through one of these events in the GT4 car that you might even be more comfortable with than you are in a GT3 machine, then that's going to be ultimately beneficial for you in the long run, trying to get yourself that wildcard spot. But it's going to be absolutely crazy here, given that there's only that one spot. It's the championship winner that gets themselves the pass through in towards the main season or the main series. That's got to mean, though, that towards the end of the season, for those drivers that are close to that, they're going to do anything to try and get themselves ahead.
Yeah, and that's where mistakes can happen. That's where issues can happen there. We're into qualifying, so it'll be good to see how everyone gets on there. But yeah, there's so much pressure on these drivers just to be able to get that championship, to get themselves qualified into next season's championship. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this race. It's going to be a little bit different with these cars, but it should be entertaining nonetheless.
It should be. So, like you quite rightfully mentioned, Paul, we are inside of the qualifying session now. So drivers just heading their way across the line to start their flying laps here. There's the driver second in line on that train all the way up in towards turn number 1. That is Emre Can, who was the race winner last time out at Oschersleben, of course holding the points lead as a result coming into this one. So he has a lot of expectation on his shoulders now. He's going to look to try and replicate that performance that he had there at Oschersleben, but here at the Red Bull Ring. But I don't think, at least from my perspective, he'll have as easy of a time here, because he really did walk away with it at Oschersleben, but I don't think the nature of this track really allows anyone to walk away with anything.
No, you're quite right with that. It doesn't allow you to do that. You really need to be on the limit and really pushing hard. I mean, at this point in qualifying at the moment, everybody's just getting their sort of banker lap in. Make sure you get your lap time in and then really push on and try and get yourself the pole position here today. Of course, starting on pole position with this series, of course, is a standing start compared to the GT3s where it's a rolling start. So Chian will be looking to try and get himself to the head of the field and try and get away from the green light once we get those in about 12 minutes or so.
So, coming towards the end of their first sets of flying laps here, Michelisz, there we go, across the line he comes. Of course, goes provisional pole position. Let's see if anyone else is able to respond a little bit further down the order then, as we see these drivers come across the line. Risto Capit up to P4 there, half a second, or well, a little bit more than that, behind your provisional pole position. Sitter at the moment, Jonas Vanna second place here in qualifying. So Michelisz has really set a baseline here for the rest of the drivers to go chasing. He's, well, was 0.4 of a second ahead of second place, but now Adam Pincez with a competitive time comes across the line, and he's only 62 thousandths of a second behind the Turk.
And of course, Pincez, I'm quite right in saying, is the driver doing double duty today, isn't he?
Yep, he is. So he's in the GT3 race, he's also in this GT4 race, and after this GT4 race, he'll be straight back to the GT3s for the endurance race. So, yeah, lots of work today for Pincez.
But that could actually work in his advantage, though, because he's got his eye in. Okay, it's a different car, which will have a different feel to it and a different speed. But you've got your eye in around the track. You know what works, what doesn't work in a race. You've got that experience under your belt. You can take that into this race. So even though it is a different car, you can take that knowledge of how the races run around here today.
So here comes Jonas. Oh, well, Jonas Vanna was about to finish a lap, but decides to abandon it at the very last moment there. We're having a look to see. There's Michelisz coming across the line now. He didn't go faster on that lap. He's still 62 thousandths of a second ahead of Adam Pincez. Here is Pincez. Let's see his particular time. It was, well, he didn't log a Sector 2 time, I don't think. So I don't think this lap is going to be valid for him. But we'll watch it run through, though, just in case, as he gets the slipstream up behind another competitor here across the line. So let's see then. So into the second half of the session now. Pincez starts a new flying lap here. I'm having a look to see Alita Dinya. He's in 4th place at the moment. He just came off the pit lane, and now there's a lot of congestion here coming down the back straight into turn 2. Hopefully drivers' laps haven't been impeded as a result. It is quite tricky sometimes when you have 33 cars at a pretty short circuit all trying to get their qualifying done.
Yeah, it certainly is, and it's tricky to get yourself some space. You quite rightly mentioned it is quite a short circuit here. It's just 4.3 kilometres and only 8 corners to speak of. So you've got to get yourself in that right position to make it work in terms of lap time. Xian coming through, not gaining on the first 2 sectors. We'll see what Sector 3 gives you, although that was a bit messy through Rint corner, and the final corner running very wide indeed. So I don't reckon that this will be an improvement. Watch it, I'll get proved wrong right about now. No, I don't. I'm right. Shows that I do know something that I'm talking about for once.
Yeah, you do. But look at this from Pincez, though. A completely different story. Purple through Sector 1, purple through Sector 2. So is this the lap that puts Pincez up into pole position for this GT4 support race? Lots of curve there on the inside of the final turn. But drive to the line for Pincez, a 1:36.242 to beat. And it's a 1:36.147. Pincez to the pointy end of the field with 3 minutes left in quali.
And that is a big marker to set. That's a line in the sand and say, right then, you need to cross that and you need to get yourself ahead of that before you can pull yourself at pole position. Cap it, Risto, cap it. Not really improving on the first sector by almost 0.2 of a second in Sector 1. I think really this is just get yourself ready for the next flying lap. When you're talking 1:36 laps, though, you're going to be getting towards starting your final lap very shortly, because we've only got 2 minutes, just over 2 minutes remaining here. The time is running out for these drivers, and it is pretty close throughout your field, and your top 27 covered by 1 second.
Yeah, very close indeed. So for all intents and purposes, they're coming across the line to kind of well, start with their final laps here. It's quite marginal for some of them. Xian heading his way through turn 1 there. He's 94 thousandths of a second behind your provisional pole position sitter at the moment. So he was top of the pile in the early part of qualifying, not so much now. Here comes Pinces. His second sector wasn't valid, I don't think, so this is not going to be a valid lap. It was quite scruffy when we were looking at it, as he had to take a pretty wide line coming through turn 3. Ottaviani, though, crossed the line, gets himself up into P3 for the Italian, and I just saw Adam Pinces take the tow back to pit lane, so he will take no further part in qualifying. Same with Ottaviani as well. I'm guessing it is all on Xian now to try and get himself up onto pole, but the thing is that sector 1 time doesn't look too good, does it?
No, certainly doesn't. It's not on par. He needs to pull something out here for sector 2. You need to be going purple by that 0.2 of a second to give yourself a chance, and no. So he has gained a little bit of time on this lap overall, but it's not quite working out for him. So definitely though, as we're coming through the final couple of corners, I don't think Xian will be improving here. And it's Pinces who looks good for pole position. We'll have to wait for those final times to come here because, of course, these qualifying results do come up, but I don't expect to see Xian moving forward in those standings, and I am correct.
You are. Unfortunately, that's just the thing that we have to deal with. It is automatic here, the graphical overlays. But there's the running then for qualifying. Adam Pinces, pole position over Xian. Then Ottaviani and Dravosikov are the second row. Capet and Dinya are the third row. You can see the bottom of the standings there up on screen right now with those drivers that didn't do so well here in qualifying. But one thing I do want to point out, though, is that our 1 second bracket went down pretty much until P28. So 28 drivers within the same second.
Yeah, so again, it is incredible how close this field is here. Now, you're going to be seeing a lot of people just practicing the standing start here, because that is what you will be seeing here. So yeah, standing start, it's a different challenge that we get to see compared to the GT3 series, where they have that manual rolling start. So these GT4 drivers have got to be sharp on their reactions for the green light.
Yeah, you have to be on top of it. You have to make sure that the car settles coming off the grid spots as well. But of course, given these are GT4 cars, you do have the assists to help you in that respect. So you have the traction control. So if you get that set correctly, then you will be able to minimize your wheel spin coming off the line. But of course, you know, it all is all driver preference with regards to exact traction control settings and exact ABS settings as well. You know, because you know, you get those in the GT3s as well, but with the standing start in GT4s, traction control going to really help out. But yeah, again, 6-minute warm-up here in between the 2 sessions. Just some time for the drivers to get themselves settled as always, and it's going to be particularly important here, Paul, given what you mentioned about the standing start, is that you have to be absolutely on it.
Yeah, and of course, as we see one of those Lotus cars behind there. But yeah, this is going to be really intriguing how this start comes out then, because we've got a different driver at the head of the field. Whether it'll be that way coming out of turn 1, we'll have to wait and see, because we saw what an absolute mess turn 1 was in the GT3s. But right now, the Arnage competition driver Pinces has just got to get himself in the right position, get himself launched off of pole position. Of course, you've got quite a gap between pole position and second place. Each row of the grid, it's quite a big stagger here, of course, using the international regulations. And so that field will be pretty much in the final corner at the start of the race for the back of the field.
Yeah, it would be. So that really does come with its own challenges here. But yeah, I mean, drivers, you know, done thousands of them at this point, you know, throughout their sim racing careers. So another start to add to the list. Maybe not too big of an issue, but this is one of the top levels of competition. Of course, the very top level of competition here on RaceRoom is the main GT3 ADAC GT Masters Esports Championship, but this is sort of the tier 2 of everything, so can't rest on your laurels. You have to make sure that you're clean, especially on the first lap, because otherwise you might have what happened to you exactly as it happened to Marko Pajic in the opening race of today. You don't want to have that happen, and I guess a lot of drivers, that in this race might have been watching the stream at the time and just thinking, oh, yeah, I have to make sure I don't do that, because that seems like a bad idea.
Yeah, it goes to prove as well that just because you started on pole position, you're not guaranteed anything in motorsport. And if is the biggest word in motorsport, and if only you hadn't been getting freight trained, and if only he hadn't have had that contact in the last corner, then Pajic would have been in a very different position. And these drivers will have seen that. They will have seen the broadcast and seen what happened at the start, because it's in your advantage, it's in your interest to watch the start of each race that you see in at a track. You see it with in real world racing, the Formula 1 drivers. You'll see them in the interview pen after qualifying, and they'll be watching the start of the Formula 2 race because they're wanting to find out what works, what doesn't work at that circuit, to really sort of narrow it down as to what worked in that. So these drivers will have watched that first race. Yes, it's a slightly different starting procedure in them having to standing start rather than rolling start. You still get that same concertina going into turn number 1.
I would say you have a slightly more chance of it in a standing start as well, given there's a bigger difference in drivers getting them reacting to the green light compared to what there would be in a rolling start. Usually some league administrators, some private league administrators usually use a rolling start just to make sure that they don't get too many chaotic problems on the first lap. Doesn't always solve them, as we saw in the previous race, but yeah, it's the different start types come with their own unique risks. But we're just a couple of minutes away now from the gridding procedure for the GT4 event here in the ADAC GT Masters Esports Championship. This is the support series, but for a lot of these drivers, they're going to treat it like it's the biggest series they've raced in their life, because at the end of this season, for the top finisher in terms of points, well, there's a slot inside the main ADAC GT Masters Esports Championship season for 2022 on the line. So we say it's the tier 2 of competition, we say it's the support race, but for some of these drivers, Paul, it's anything but.
Certainly is, and yeah, it's no matter how high or low a standing a series has in the world of sim racing, or indeed in the world of motorsport, you need to treat that race like it's everything. You need to give it absolutely everything out there on track, because if you leave anything on the line in a race, well, you're not really racing. You don't deserve to be there. So yeah, you won't see that from any of these drivers. They will be pushing and going for it because they're all really competitive drivers out there. So yeah, it's going to be intriguing to see how this one pans out. I'm looking forward to it all.
I certainly am as well. So 3 seconds left remaining before the end of the warm-up session, and we can get ourselves going for the for the GT4 race here at the Red Bull Ring. It's going to be absolutely crazy. We are very thankful that you're all able to join us here for this one. Great viewership, great interactions in the chat as well. Thank you guys very, very much for tuning in. Well, we've got 2 races to go. We've got this GT4 support race, and of course we have the GT3 endurance event as well in the main season. So still lots of racing to come here on RaceRoom, and of course the Traction GG channel here on YouTube. But we're just moments away from getting the GT4 support race started here at the Red Bull Ring. Like Paul said, standing start, different procedure from the GT3. Let's see if that shakes things up then on the way in towards turn number 1 as they have to climb up the hill and try and sort themselves out somehow, single file in towards there. But now we are all ready for 20 minutes of racing here in the ADAC GT Masters Esports Championship GT4 event. The drivers are holding for the green light, and we've got ourselves maybe someone jumping the start there. I saw the penalty flash up for just a moment, but Ben says has gotten away well, but Ottaviani trying to dive down his inside. No, Ottaviani's trying to battle Emre Cian for P2 there. Problems for someone at the back there. We've got 3 wide here on the way down in towards turn number 2. Surely this is not going to work. This is Ilya Drovosikov, Risto Capet, Garrett Suthoff, all scrapping for position here. We might even see 4 wide on the way in towards turn number 2. Surely that can't work, but they've been able to negotiate it 2 and 3 wide.
Yeah, somehow everybody makes their way through there and gets cleanly through. So down towards turn 3, battling for your race lead. Cian wants to get back in front. A little bit of a push there from Princess, but not able to get rid of Cian quite into turn number 4. Inside for the Turkish driver. And he's going to have the inside for the next corner as well. But these cars can run side by side through this and the next corner as well. And hopefully they'll be able to have it nice and clean. A little bit of a bump there in the side of the car. Vincent's not giving that one up, but Cian now up to the head of your field.
Yeah, made short work. Well, wasn't quite short work. It actually took a lot of effort to try and get by there, did Emre Cian. But he now leads, coming out of the final corner to complete lap number 1 here. But everything still definitely all to play for here. That was just the first shot in a huge battle here in amongst your front runners. There's Ottaviani P2, Elita Dinya in P4 at the moment here. There's a bit of scrapping behind involving a good couple of drivers that has kind of sorted itself out at this point. But due to all of these cars being Audis, that all equals out in terms of the balance, performance, and the horsepower coming down the straights here. So maybe these guys can keep each other all together a little bit more.
I was going to say the battle for 4th and 5th was getting a little bit heated there into turn number, no, 2nd and 3rd and 4th. Yes, I was right the first time. They were getting a bit heated there into turn 2, a little bit of contact. So easily done there because you all concertina together on the braking, and if one brakes slightly later than the other, you can end up in the back of the car in front. Cian, though, hasn't got it all his own way here, and Princess putting the pressure on. This is great to see, but we've got plenty of time in this one. So, you know, sit back, relax, get the drink of your choice there, and enjoy this one, because this should be an absolute cracker.
Yeah, it should be indeed. As we continue on here, we've got ourselves, you know, after a frantic first lap, it seems like things at the very front of the field just calming themselves down just a little bit more. And, you know, that's the situation Cian in particular is hoping for. He wants to have a nice time there at the very front of the field, but he is pulling the train along. He's not breaking away just like he did at Oschersleben. He's even going to try and weave towards the inside to maybe get a little bit of the slipstream broken there, but it's all in vain, really. It's just making the straight longer, if you think about it, and maybe not helping you out too much as they close up on the brakes.
The slipstream isn't the strongest in these cars, of course. It's not the most aerodynamically effective car. You don't have as much of the, like, for example, the big diffusers on the back compared to the GT3s, or the massive wings. Speaking of wings, Cian's winging it to the outside of 3. Almost work his way through, but looking back from your race leader, well, Princess is keeping that pressure on. Turn 4, different lines being taken. Princess was slightly quicker into the corner, but you need to be quicker out of the corner, especially here through 5 and 6. heading into 7 where it's pretty much one line. But this front 3 have really broken away now from 4th place, so it's a front 3 battle for the lead.
That does seem to be the case, as Elita Digne kind of dropping off the back of them at the moment. Still within a shot, still within the very tail end of the slipstream in these cars, but Digne has to be careful that they don't drop back as much as to get out of the draft, shall I say, and then they'll have to try and find and defend from positions behind instead. So you got to keep yourselves in contention for the race lead. Yes, someone pushed very, very wide there coming out of the first turn, and might we even see 3 wide back here? It's Mihai Neg, Jonas Vanner, Gerrit Sufov here, all scrapping for position. This is P7 and back. Neg to the inside, Sufov looking down the middle of them. Oh, it's all getting congested here. Absolutely nose to tail for P7, and well, Neg coming out on top right now, but look at how close everyone is behind.
Yeah, Vanner and Dixon now side by side as well, going in towards 3, and late on the brakes, Dixon. Nice move, that one, but he really did go late on the brakes, go deep, and it worked out for him. There's been a bit of paint swapping going on out there between these drivers, but Dixon now very, very wide. I think he tried to give a little bit of room, but gave too much room there.
Yep, and now Markovic squeezing through there in P10, so great little scraps for position here, just inside and outside the top 10. But is anything going to change here on the way into, well, next time into turn 2 in particular, because these guys are keeping each other very, very close indeed. You might even see a change at the final corner. That's not usually an overtaking spot, but Vanner has found his way to the inside of Sufov here. They all run out of road coming off the corner. That grass does come up on you rather quickly, and, well, you need to make sure you leave space to the driver not to run out into the grass.
Well, the problem is that he'd forced him off at the final corner and just gave no space at all for him to return to the track after he'd been very aggressive on that move into the final corner. That's the reason why I say the final corner isn't really a place where you make overtakes, and Sufov then just the one that lost out in all of that, and Markovic now really putting the pressure on. And Vanner is saying, right, see you later, boys. You fight it out. I want to move forward here.
Alpha P9 up on screen. Markovic getting close into the braking zone, not making a move at all. What's going on in the background there, though, is 2x2 into turn number 3 there, as it was Adamczyk, Zeifer, Stemperski, so those latter two still going door to door on the way in towards turn number 4. It all gets a bit sketchy between the two of them there, but Zeifel ahead, Sasha Zeifel ahead of Stemperski at the moment. Stemperski looking to the inside through turn 5 and turn 6 here, but they're going to end up losing position to Sinyan Gurney and Witvot as well, so that's a textbook case of going straight from the attack to the defense and losing out.
I think he was too preoccupied with trying to give back what he got in all of that. He got barged out the way and he wanted to try and get back at him, and it didn't pan out for him. So that's why Stemperski has ended up down there in 16th place. The battle at the front has really sort of calmed down and spread out now. So that's why we've been seeing so much of this action. All the action really is in that mid-pack. The battle for 9th down really is where all the action is in this race, because the front 3, they've separated out nicely and just got themselves into a rhythm here at this point. The race is almost at 9 minutes into this race.
What did I say about before the race about Emre Can and saying, oh well, he's not really going to be that possible to break away here at the Red Bull Ring, but look at what he's done. He's starting to get there now, isn't he? He's about 7.5 tenths of a second ahead now, up to 8 tenths of a second. So Emre Can doing what I thought was not feasible. I wouldn't say possible, but feasible, and he has been able to get away, at least in some capacity, to the drivers behind. But I get the feeling Pinces will still remain in his wake and try and keep him honest, though.
You would imagine so, wouldn't you? With the pace that Princess showed, of course, getting pole position in this race. So he's got the pace in there. Maybe he's just saving a little bit of his car for a push towards the end of the race. The last, say, 5 or 6 laps of the race, really then push on at that point. But we're reaching the halfway point of this race. And everything's just... everybody's getting into a rhythm now, and they've calmed themselves down from those opening lap endeavours. But I would imagine, as time runs out, things will start to heat up once again.
I think so too. Things might be heating up now for P2 in particular, because Princess now having to deal with the Italian, Alessandro Ottaviani, in his wing mirrors at the moment, and that could be a little bit disconcerting for him, as Ottaviani just going to sit inside that slipstream all the way down the hill in towards turn number 3. But yeah, again, this is kind of obvious now that the draft isn't quite as powerful in these cars compared to the GT3s. Meanwhile, this is Suforth and Markovic. Markovic squeaking ahead there inside of turn 3. Bo Dixon on the outside looking in this one as well. There's the onboard there with Dixon, as he has everything going on ahead of him.
Tremendous stuff. This battle, 9th, 10th and 11th. And a little bit wide there from Suforth. So that's going to allow Dixon maybe just get the better run through 5 and 6 in towards turn 7. It's named after Jochen Rindt. Here we are through the right hander onto the brakes, using all of the curb on the entry. He uses the curb on the inside as well, does Bo. Back onto the power, and those drivers in front trying to break the draft. The weaving going on down the straight. You have to try everything you can to try and give yourself the best opportunity as possible to stay ahead in this race. But Dixon's got to be careful, because he does have cars behind, so he needs to start thinking about making some moves forward in all of this.
I mean, he has a decent chance here on the way in towards turn number 2 and moves to the inside. Has to back out of it though, returns back to the normal racing line there. There's still action going on a little bit further down the road as well. There's the battle for P4 between Alita Digne and Ilya Drovosikov. Digne seems like he's not able to keep the pace of the top 3 runners. He's continuing to drop back off of them, and now he's falling back into the clutches of the Swiss driver of Drovosikov and the Estonian of Risto Capet here in P6. So it's the front train has kind of separated itself out into 2 groups of 3.
We said about Capet, interested to see how he gets on in all of this. 6th place at the moment, and well, it's great to see he's up there battling away. Not making his moves yet, but the time is running out, and that's going to be the battle for 4th all the way through to the end of the race, you would imagine, because those 3 drivers are just so evenly matched. Same with the front 3, same with the 2 behind it all. Just everybody seems to have formed these little battle packs throughout the field here, and it's really spread out this field into those little gaggles of cars, just the odd 2-3 car trains out there on track. But time running out now. If you're feeling that you've got a bit more pace, you need to start making those moves. You can't afford to get stuck behind, and that's exactly what Capet is doing to the inside. But the run on the outside, you can get on the power a little bit earlier, carry the speed, but you're in the wrong place heading in towards turn 3.
Yeah, so that is now Risto Capet up into P5. He got a very, very good run out of turn 1 to be able to ride the back bumper of Drovosikov into turn 2. But here's the battle into turn 3 between Drovosikov it's not Drovosikov, it's Michał Neg and Jonas Vanna that are battling wheel to wheel coming in towards turn number 4 here. They lean on each other's doors a little bit as Vanna tries to make some progress around the outside here, but not going to find anything into the second apex there. Looking for the cut back off the corner, looking for the overcommitment from Michał Neg, as Neg has some trouble getting the momentum through the chicane, and Vanna is able to get back to his inside for the second to last corner here. He does commit to it. Neg leaves the space, and Vanna squeezes through.
Good stuff from Vanna then to make that move stick and to make it work. Just showing that you can overtake at more than just 2 corners around this track, and doing a great job of that. But now he's the car creating the hole in the air, so he's going to be under pressure. Speaking of under pressure as well, I could tell you, looking at your timing on tower on the left-hand side, the battle for the lead has really started to pick up.
Oh.
I did wonder whether Pincez was holding back a little bit, saving a bit in that car, and it's looking that way now.
It does. Maybe he saved a bit of tyres to have a very good go at it for the end of this event. He dropped back to around about 8-9 tenths of a second through the middle portion of this race, but now he has really turned up the heat and is locked onto the back of Emre Can now, so we will have a bit of a fight then for the race lead perhaps in the final laps of this race. That's what we were waiting for. Let's see if the Turkish driver from Team Fordzilla is able to hold on. Cihan has done so well over the course of not just this race but the previous race as well to show what he's made of, and it might end up being 2 from 2 here for Cihan, but this is his biggest challenge yet. Pincez is not going to let him get the second race win that easy.
Certainly not. And this is great to see. Great to see a challenge for Cihan out there on track, and he may not enjoy it right now, but this is the best thing for him here, to have a challenger right on his tail, pushing him all the way. It's the only way that you improve is if you get used to that pressure situation. Both drivers taking a similar line through the exit of turn 1. Again, liberal use of the track and the track limits. And look at that slipstream into the brakes. The outside line doesn't always work around here, and it's showing once again. And Ottavane now is trying to get involved in all of this one, so it's a 3-car battle for the lead.
It really is, and Pincez is looking again now down in towards turn number 3, downhill braking zone. Let's see if he's got the commitment required around the outside to be able to make this move work. Just half a car length alongside before having to back off and let Emre Can retain the race lead. But don't count out Ottaviani here in this one either. The Italian that's third in line in that purple car. He could potentially get himself involved in this as well. He's just been waiting patiently for now, but in the final laps of this race, maybe he can start to make an impact. So it's been an interesting race so far here in the top couple positions. There's been a battle further back though. Litadinia and Dravosikov are absolutely scrapping it out. Look at the defense to the inside there from Litadinia. Little leaning on the doors once again in towards the penultimate corner. This is the battle for P4 here at the moment. We'll take an eye on the battle for the race lead in just a couple of moments as Dinia forced out wide there. And now we might see 3 wide down the pit straight for P4 here. Coming across the start-finish line, Litadinia leads this pack at the moment. They all try to defend for the pit wall. They all return back to the racing line. This is fantastic scrapping, but it ends in tears as Dinia finds the runoff.
Oh, I thought it was all getting a bit too aggressive out there, and that's exactly what happened there. Just too much. There was too much contact there between those 3 cars, and well, Dinia, unfortunately for him, is the one who loses out in all of that. Meanwhile, looking at this battle for the lead, Pincez is running out of time now. He needs to do something different. He's going for the outside line on each of these corners in turn 2 and turn 3 is not going to pay off. He needs to get himself to the inside of 2, but right now Cihan doing a fantastic job of defending that line into 2.
Yeah, he's been very, very exemplary holding on here, and well, it's a complete opposite to what he had to do at Oschersleben. He ran away from the field and he was about 4, 5, 6 seconds ahead of everyone else at the very end in that one, but not so, just, well, 2, 3, 4 tenths of a second ahead of Adam Pincez at the moment. This will be through the final corner for the penultimate time here, so we'll be able to get ourselves across the line and then start the final lap here. It's 3 drivers at the very front of the field that can finish really in any order possible, but which way is it going to be? Well, we'll have a better idea of it maybe coming out of turn number 3, but in towards turn number 1 they come. What's the run like from Pincez? What's the run like from Ottaviani? You can see Qian desperately trying to break the draft with the swerving coming down the back straight, but does he have enough breathing room here up in towards turn 2? I believe he does. So next opportunity now for Pincez might just be into turn 3. Look at how closely he follows coming off of turn 2. That will set himself up quite well for a move into turn number 3, but let's see if he's able to commit to it. Let's see if he's able to make it happen. He's a little bit too far back, I get the feeling. He'll try and take the wide line anyway. Qian went slightly defensive there coming down the hill, and now the sectors start to run out as they head their way in towards sector 2, turn number 4. Here, swinging it in. Still no opportunity here for Pincez or Ottaviani, to be fair. Now in towards turn number 5 and 6. Now it might have to be a mistake from Qian that puts Pincez into a position to try and capitalize. Unless Pincez can get a monster run through the S's section. Let's see if he's able to make it happen into the final couple of corners. Qian is scared a little bit. You can see the momentum Pincez takes through the penultimate corner. He's trying to size up a move into the final corner. He takes a bit of a wider line. Surely he'll get the better speed on exit. It's a sprint to the line, but I think Qian's just about ahead by 1/10.5 at the line. Qian takes the race win here in the GT4 event at Red Bull Ring, and the second race for him that he's won this season.
Well, that was not easy for him at all. Pincez just didn't quite get the run out of turn 1 on that final lap to make the move in towards turn number 2, but Qian really got made to work for that one in the end. It certainly was a challenge all the way, and it was tremendous stuff. Brilliant stuff from the front 3, and well, Ottaviani as well. Don't forget him as well. He's finishing 3rd place. Got the fastest lap of the race. A nice double draft from those in front of him.
Here we go. Unofficial results. Qian, Pincez, Ottaviani are your podium. Great job again from Qian to hold on this time around and come away with the race win instead of walking away from it with it in race number 1 of the season. Javosikov P4, Vanna P5, Capet P6, Neg P7, Markovic P8, Dixon and then Sutov round out the top 10. The rest of the runners just scrolling by there up on your screen. So what a fantastic event yet again in this GT4 category in particular here, Paul. Again, just kind of replicating what their bigger brothers in the GT3s are able to do.
Yeah, and great stuff again. A little bit more argy-bargy, I thought, in that race. Really gave each other no quarters asked and none given. But certainly that battle for the lead was really, really intense. And Qian was made to work for that one, and certainly deserves to take away that race victory. But the front 3, you throw a blanket over them. They were that close together. It was great stuff at the front, but all the way through the field, once again, those GT4s giving us great entertainment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm looking forward to seeing what these drivers can do throughout the rest of the season now, because we've got these first 2 rounds under our belts now. They kind of have gotten a picture of where everything stands. Of course, you know, the qualifying procedure into the GT4 support series is a little bit different compared to what it was for the GT3s. In the GT4s, you have to qualify through the leaderboards every single week. In terms of time attack sort of style racing. Well, not even racing, it's time attack qualifying in a sense. So the grid is not always going to be, you know, consistent from race to race, but I would hazard a guess most of the top runners will be here pretty much every single race. So you've got everything set now. You basically know where everyone stands. It's just now that development through the season now with the tracks coming up, which is going to be playing the main difference. Qian has really established himself as the driver to beat in the GT4 series, but this race has really shown that he is not invincible.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly not invincible. You took the words right out of my mouth there, Connery. He's certainly going to have a challenge on his hands if we see Princess throughout the rest of the season. But, the challenges are going to come thick and fast for them. But they'll get a nice little bit of a break now until the next round where they'll be able to do battle once again. But definitely those GT4s, it's tremendous action as always, and it's certainly one to look forward to. Never mind the GT3 Championship; those GT4s, brilliant stuff.
So, GT4s are over and done with. We head into the GT3 endurance event now. So, this one can be played a little bit differently from the drivers. We have that scheduled pit stop to be worried about, where they have to take tires, they have to take fuel until the end of the race. So there's going to be a little bit of strategy intrigue here. You know, like last season, maybe the pit stop window is quite wide in terms of drivers actually going for the early stops or going for the later stops. We saw some of that in the race at Oschersleben as well. A lot of drivers in that particular race going for the early stops because they knew how important track position was in that race. Maybe we'll see a little bit more variation here at the Red Bull Ring, considering how the track race is.
I would imagine so. I mean, just given how that first race, the sprint race, went, I think you're going to see a lot of people maybe have multiple strategy options open to them, depending on where they are in the field. If they're stuck behind cars, you take that early pit stop, get the quick laps in to try and jump those cars. If you're in clean air, generally you try and sort of stay out there as long as possible if you're in clean air, because it means that you're just able to lap at your pace. But you've also got to be conscious of those trying to undercut you as well. It's a really intriguing race. Is this endurance race? It's not a traditional endurance length. You know, it's only it's only what 40 minutes, isn't it? So that really it shows that these drivers have got to think, but they've not got a lot of time to have that variation there, and you've got to have people behind the scenes working with you, seeing what works best.
We saw a handful of drivers in the first race looking to try and get themselves up into that top spots. There's no reason why we can't see the same thing again here as well, especially considering we have a top 10 reverse grid from the results of the sprint race in effect here as well. So that's going to shake things up, at least in the early part of this race here. Of course, you know, we're in practice right now. I can actually pull that up on screen for you now. Enough of our ugly faces and more into the racing. Yeah, well, I guess one of us is ugly. Paul, you're an absolute star. You're absolutely beautiful. But see, no response, so that means it's true. But but yeah, we're into practice there, and of course 4 minutes left of this practice session to go. We won't have a qualifying session due to the grid being set as a top 10 reverse grid from the results of the sprint race. But that just changes things somewhat here, and it means that those top runners, for example, like Luna, for example, and Rietveld, and a couple of others as well, have they're getting put back into the sort of bottom end of the top 10 sort of position. So how do they negotiate that now? Because we saw it was particularly tricky at Oschersleben, for example, but after the pit stops happened, everything kind of filed out in the way we expected it. But here at the Red Bull Ring, maybe the reverse grid doesn't matter as much.
Possibly. We'll have to see about that. By the way, there was a handful of penalties handed out from that first race. It was it kept the stewards busy, that's for sure. It does mean that Mark Gassner should be starting on pole position in this feature race, ahead of sharing the front row with Florian Hasse. Mm-hmm. So Hasse's got a good opportunity there, and that two Audis at the front row of the grid really looking intriguing. But yeah, I don't know if we mentioned about the penalty, because I mean, Wisniewski, I mean, it wasn't bad enough that he got a drive-through penalty, but a 10-second post-race penalty as well for taking the slowdown on the racing line.
I think we saw someone also fall foul of that in the race at Oschersleben as well. Yes. There was someone who also served the slowdown penalty on the racing line, which is a big no-no, because you don't know who's going to be coming up on you while you're going slow on the racing line, and they have to take an avoiding action to not have a crash with you. Well, you're at fault for that, which is why the stewards come down pretty hard on that sort of thing. We had a 10-second post-race time penalty for Nesta Garcia as well, and 1 strike on the license for hitting Krippner in lap 6. Erhan Yayovsky getting a warning for contact with Pulska. Price getting a 5-second post-race penalty for blocking Siggy and not leaving space. So a lot of decisions have come down from the race administrators here at the end of race number 1. Of course, that might affect the reverse grid situation slightly if there's positions inside the top 10 that had time penalties that slot them behind people. But yeah, I'm all pumped up for this one. Like you said, Mark Gassner starting pole position here. Florian Hasse on the front row as well. Banki and Barner on the second row, which is quite an interesting second row there. Brzezinski and Lohner, he will be on the row behind them. So that's going to be the third row for Brzezinski and Lohner. So this is a good opportunity actually for Lohner to really make his way forward if he can pick his way through the traffic.
Yeah, working his way through the traffic, but also really making the moves stick as well. We saw how he made that brilliant move through this corner that we're seeing right now, turn 3, around the outside. It worked once. He tried it multiple times, and in the rest of the race, couldn't quite get it to work. And the problem with taking that outside line through turn number 3 is that you're so easily just forced wide, and the grass and the gravel is right there next to the corner exit, so you don't have the space to maybe go off. There's not really the biggest amount of curbing there, so it's very easy to lose a handful of positions through that, and in fact that's what we saw happen to Lerner out there. But plenty of drivers out there practicing their pit entry, and they'll need that for this feature race.
They will. That one scheduled stop to think about. Having to take tyres and the fuel to the very end of the race. It's the exact same here as race 1 in terms of start procedure. So you'll see the drivers take themselves to the starting grid. Then we will roll off the starting grid, ready for the pace lap, ready for the real race start in the at the end of the 2 minutes there. But here we go then. Reverse grid, top 10. Gassner, pole position. What can he do from there? It's not easy to hold on to position here at the Red Bull Ring, but it's not impossible to be able to do so. So Gassner has a decent opportunity here of getting some very, very healthy points in the championship, even if he doesn't come home P1. If he gets a top 5 finish, then that will help out a whole bunch. Same with Florian Hasse, same with Ben Sparky and Barner as well. So a lot of drivers looking to get their season back on track in those front couple of positions for the start of the endurance race here. Everyone just about ready on the starting grid. They'll get the command to roll off in just a couple of moments. But yeah, this is where the tension starts to get just that little bit higher. Gassner will lead them off here in just a few moments, and we'll get ourselves ready for the endurance race. It's an all-German front row here for the endurance race. Everyone else behind a smorgasbord of nationalities. It's great to see how international these competitions are, at least in terms of the European side, I would say, given the eligibility requirements for this series.
Yeah, certainly the breadth of talent that you're seeing out there is absolutely tremendous, and it's great to see that variation. You know, it's not just the majority of drivers from one nation. There are multiple nationalities out there, as you mentioned there, Connery. So how we see these things going out? Well, the early pit stop, if you can get yourself the space out there on track, and it's not the easiest track to get yourself that early space, then you can really make that early pit stop work. You just got to be careful of the traffic here, as we've kept on mentioning. Only a 4.3 kilometer track, only 8 corners, and if you get stuck behind somebody who's not on the same pace as you on older tyres, you will make the move, but it will slow you down momentarily through this race. You've got to be careful. You've got to have your team behind you working with you and saying, right, you should be able to slot in this place and get yourself some nice clean air and try and work those pit stops well.
couple more elements to think about when it comes to the endurance race of the ADAC GT Masters Esports Championship. Of course, our title sponsor, NBW Mobility Plus. Thank you very much for supporting the series for yet another year. But everyone stacking themselves up double file then for the race start of the endurance events here at the Red Bull Ring. Of course, like always, the start command will be given by race control. So no leader that gets to dictate the start sort of situation here. It's all in the hands of race control. And soon will be green flag racing at the Red Bull Ring. Heading their way through the final corner now. It's a Gassner, Hasse front row. Bunky, Barner second row. Brzezinski, Lohner third row. Let's see if that all shuffles coming into the first lap here. They get the start command. We're endurance racing here at the Red Bull Ring, and immediately we'll see ourselves 3 wide for the top couple of positions there. Just briefly, they transition to 2x2 coming through to turn number 1. Florian Hasse just about getting half a car length ahead for the race lead, putting pole position sitter Mark Gassner down a position. Can Gassner come back at him? Coming down in towards turn number 2. Barner and the Bentleys looking around the outside, 3 wide for the race lead on the first lap of the endurance race, and they keep it together. Hasse ahead. He's got himself the race lead.
Tremendous stuff. Not the contact that we saw in race 1, which is good to see. Everybody cleanly away. And Banky, look at that, to the outside. 3 wide through 3. That doesn't work, guys, at all. Bit of bumping and barging. Banky loses the position to Barner, and now is under pressure from Brzezinski. This is really an intense start, and well, everybody's behaving themselves so far relatively.
Dornaden down the inside of Brzezinski there, coming through turn 5 and 6. They're still wheel to wheel, just briefly before the exit of turn 6 there. Now a look to the inside there for Dornaden's NP5. Meanwhile, Moritz Lohner looking down the inside of Brzezinski here, trying to get the early moves done here. Moritz Lohner knows how important it is to get those consistent top 5 finishes. That's exactly how he won last season, despite not winning a single race. So Lohner knows how to win championships, and he knows what's important with regards to getting these early positions.
Certainly does. Experienced driver as well. He knows to play the long game here. Brzezinski, though, putting the pressure on into turn number 3. These laps will come thick and fast, and in fact making the move around the outside, and Dornaden really looked unsettled through turn 3. There's a car way off west at the back of the shot there, but keeping it clean. But yeah, Dornaden showing a nose into 3, not going to work there, and really, as I say, just looked a little bit out of sorts on turn 2.
Yeah, he really did. Maybe a couple of problems here early on for him. As we got ourselves first 2 laps in the books now, and on lap number 3, Florian Hasse leads them around from Mark Gassner, then Barner, then Banky, then Brzezinski. That's the order of the top 5 at this point in the race, but Brzezinski getting pretty close to Banky for P4 here, and continuing to apply the pressure coming through the final couple of corners. But this is where the order starts to settle out a little bit, usually in these sorts of races, but I think especially here at a race this length, considering these guys know they had to play the long game. Yes, it is. It's a short race compared to multi-hour long endurance races, but it's a long race compared to 15 and 20-minute sprint races. So it's kind of caught into that awkward middle portion as Brzezinski looks for a move on Banky here into the turn 2.
We saw this work last lap for Brzezinski. Not going to work out this lap though, with that move to the outside. Trying to put Banky under pressure. Will he look to the inside? Oh, Banky's sure. He's given the space there into 3. I would have thought he would have defended a bit more authoritatively than that. But then, as they're heading through towards turn 4, Banky does have the inside line for the next corner. And Brzezinski, if he's not careful, we've seen it plenty of times in the first race, in the sprint race, how people were able to take advantage of drivers offline through that corner, but able to carry on. And Banky is really holding up this queue of traffic, and Brzezinski is getting a little bit more desperate. He knows that he can move forward and has the pace in the car, not able to do it so far.
Dornaden's looking for a way through as well. He gets to the inside, coming off the final corner, at least briefly, before he has to duck back in line. A big defensive move all the way to the pit wall. What's going on back here between Yarshall and Keithley? As Yarshall almost put Keithley into the pit wall there. That was absolutely crazy. Close stuff there for the battle for positions 9 and 10. It just shows how aggressive some of these drivers are when it comes to holding on to the position.
That was almost Schumacher and Barrichello at the Hungaroring in 2010. There's a door bang. Oh, contact between the two of them. And well, Dornaden's going to say, oh, well, thank you. I'll take one place and possibly take 2 places there. This is great stuff between these three, but they're slowing each other down. You can see visibly just how much they've lost on the front three by all of this battling. And Banky still ends up in 4th place, but the 3 wide. What are you doing? This is a 40-minute race. Calm yourselves down. Or it's Lerner saying, oh, well, I'll get involved in all of this as well.
I mean, Lerner's picked up 1 position already. Lerner's going to pick up another position, perhaps. No, not quite, but good enough for 1. As Lerner now up into 6th place. He got that pass done on Dornaden. Now, next person on his list is going to be Jacob Brzezinski as well. So the last thing that these guys needed is Moritz Lerner getting himself involved at this point, because it's been very, very close between this entire group, and having someone the caliber of Lerner also get stuck in the mix as well is going to cause a bit of a problem for them. But let's have a look then. A little bit in the background, Rietveld at least looking to the inside on Dornaden. Now looking again to the inside into turn number 1, and that's an authoritative move if I ever saw one.
Interesting to see as well. Oh, squeeze onto the grass there on the exit of 1. Interesting to see Thibaut Casabon moving up into 11th place ahead of race 1 winner Jack Keithley. So those drivers have swapped positions. Moritz Lerner putting the pressure on Brzezinski. Not that Porsche just doesn't quite have the grunt off the corner, does it? It doesn't quite have the pull coming out of those tight corners to give him the opportunity. Into 3 he goes, and there's contact behind. Multiple cars involved in all of that one, and that was Dornaden getting turned.
Yeah, Dornaden, he's done a good job to hold on to it, but it has cycled him back a couple positions. Oh, no, Thibaut Casabon. Thibaut Casabon has spun, and that's a big smash there for Wisniewski, who went red hot into that. I think that was all Casabon just getting the back end out, spinning right around and causing major problems for those cars behind.
Yeah, that all got a bit too close out there, and Casabon, you mentioned it, how you just get a bit flustered. Well, I think he might have a bit of damage to the rear of the car as well, with how heavy Wisniewski went into the back of his Audi. So that Bentley certainly not looking Bentley shaped in the 19th place. But this battle for the lead, Martin Barner and Mark Gassner. Gassner, who of course started on pole position, doing a really good job of defending into turn 2. That Bentley though, I just cannot get over just how big that Bentley is compared to the rest of these cars.
Yeah, it is pretty crazy, you know, the size comparison. I mean, you talk about size comparison between cars, you know, the whole BMW M8 meme, GTE meme comes up, but at Le Mans, was that last year or a couple of years ago now? I keep forgetting. This is like, yeah, it's a couple of years ago now. But yeah, it just goes to show that like, it's completely different styles of cars the manufacturers have taken into this GT3 category. It's great to see, you know, the different makes and models of cars, but also able to compete with each other on the same circuit, because the balance of performance has been sorted out. At least it's kind of made it relatively okay right now. We saw Porsche's lead in the sprint race. Now we see Audi's lead, but Bentleys have also been involved in things as well. We have that BMW of Rietveld also in the top couple of positions as well. So it seems like the bop is pretty good, at least if you're not a Mercedes.
And we've got people making pit stops at this early stage. So deciding now is the time. Brzezinski is one of those. Deciding now's the time to make those pit stops. Of course, you have to change all 4 tyres. Yarshel as well. One of those drivers who was pretty well up in the order of this race. And he's found himself onto pit road. So yeah, the all 4 tyres have to be changed in this pit stop, so they'll be there a little while. It'd be interesting to see what their lap times will be like once they're out of pits and in that clean air.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on it and see how much progress that these early stoppers are able to make. We're not seeing as many early stoppers as we saw in round 1, though. There was just a handful of them coming down on towards pit lane that time around. We might see another group decide to try and come in this lap and try and cover them off. But we might see then an even larger group just try and continue with it and try and go long on the strategy. But that's just the interesting thing about this race. It's that additional element to the racing that really spices things up here as we watch this battle between Siggy and Dorniden continue to rage on. We have more visitors on towards the pit lane. I think, yeah, Moritz Lohner down in.
Yeah, so that's where I said, didn't I, between the 2 races, the strategy call of if you're involved in a scrap and you're not really, you feel that you're quicker than that car that you're stuck behind and you can maybe progress forward, well, this is the time to make those pit stops, get yourself that gap and that clean air and maybe try and jump them in the pit stops. But that's where then that car that was holding you up, or if you felt it was holding you up, is then they can come onto pit road, they can react the next lap and try and keep you behind. So yeah, that's what we'll see out there. It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out for us here in this one. Florian Hassett, of course, was one of those early pit stoppers who was your early race leader. He's currently leading those drivers who have been on pit road.
There he is, P number 19 at the moment. So, like you said, leading the early stoppers here. And let's see if they can get the outlaps done and are able to complete the undercut here in this situation. Remember, these drivers do have to take the tires. There's no option about it. So, so it is fresher rubber for everyone with the little green icon on the bottom of your screen there. That means they have completed their scheduled pit stop as Dorniden decides to dive his way down in. I'm guessing that the stewards have told them that it's fine to cut across the AstroTurf there and come down on towards the pit lane.
That's not AstroTurf there, that's grass.
Yeah.
So they're really playing with fire there by taking that line onto pit road. So yeah, your next visitors down onto pit road are there. So Banky, Dorniden as well is another one of those that are on pit road. So we'll be interested to see. Brzezinski was able to get out ahead of Lerner. Lerner was coming out the pits as Brzezinski went past. Speaking of going past, Hayek, well, he's continuing his recovery drive from race 1 and has moved forward yet another position.
There's what you were talking about there, Paul, as Moritz Lohner behind Jacob Brzezinski here at the moment, but we'll have to see when the rest of the drivers come down in for their scheduled stops what the order is actually going to be. There was Ben Spanky actually coming off the pit lane behind them.
And that's a jumper position for Lerner ahead of Banky, so that early pit stop and that little bit of clean air has paid off as Banky goes very deep into 2.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of cold tyres going on there for Ben Spanky as he struggled on the brakes. And look at how far he dropped off the back there. That's not great there from Ben Spanky. And now Moritz Lohner looking down the inside of Brzezinski, down in towards turn number 3. A bit of a goring through the apex. But here's now Moritz Lohner ahead. He's got himself the inside just a little bit here, and he's got himself clear. So put that Porsche up one more position over Brzezinski this time. And, well, Hassett, well, he's enjoying this because he's able to pull away from the both of them.
He certainly is, and yeah, you're quite right. He will be loving that. Next ones are on pit road. Gassner, then your pole sitter from that reverse grid. And this is where you get to see how that reverse grid works out, and with these pit stops, taking that pit stop, I mean, that's still relatively early. We're not quite at the halfway point of the race. So he's taken that pit stop relatively early. He's coming out of pit road
Hasse.
now. Here's Hasse. Oh, this is going to be tight. I think Hasse will have it. Yes, he will.
So Hasse now effective race leader of all of those that had come down on towards the pit lane. So that's what fresh tyres can do for you for a couple of laps. A couple of laps undercut, gaining a second or so, and has put Hasse ahead of Gartner now. But the thing is, Gartner will have a couple of laps fresher tyres now for the rest of the race. Of course, they kind of equal out a little bit more towards the very end. Of course, Gartner's going to have to try and use the early laps here to try and cause Hasse a bit of a problem. But he does still hold that advantage now until the end of the race, and he's not too far behind. He's only 4 tenths behind.
I mean, we saw last time out, didn't we, at Oschersleben about how the fresher tyres gave you that little bit of an edge for about 3-4 laps or so, and then they just sort of they tailed off then that performance advantage. So whether that pans out here, we'll have to wait and see. I believe we've got Barna Siggy onto pit road. Plinska as well on pit road as well. So they're getting their next pit stops. But I do feel that Hasse is going to be your race leader after the pit stops. Although Barna now coming out the pit road. Where will he all pan out? We'll have to wait and see. He should come out behind Lerner. Will he? He's just in front of Lerner, but he's going to be slower. Lerner needs to pounce now. He needs to take advantage of that speed.
Yeah, here's the momentum down in towards turn number 2 for Moritz Lerner. There's cold tyres for Barna as well. He has to be so careful there on the inside. He doesn't now break himself and go straight into the side of the Porsche. Lerner gets the speed on the outside there, but remember the straight line speed of that Porsche isn't great, so there's opportunity for this Bentley to come back at him now. Down in towards turn number 3, it happens exactly like that, but Lerner's able to cover everything off. And look at that from Brzezinski down the inside, or at least attempting to.
He's trying to take advantage of that little bit of advantage that they'll have with the tyres up to temperature. But Barna now, I mean, he's going to be pretty secure at this point of the lap, and he should be good now to stay ahead of Brzezinski on those tyres. And of course, Brzezinski was one of the first ones onto pit road, so he's going to be most at disadvantage at these drivers. So Barna on the fresher rubber should be able to start pulling away.
Yeah, he can probably follow through in the slipstream of Lerner, but that's not exactly gone to plan, has it? Because Brzezinski got a much better run out of the final corner, not quite close enough to be able to make a move, but Rietveld certainly thinks he's close enough to make a move up into turn number 1. He tries to get it done, but there's the cutback from Bunky, as Bunky will now get the speed on the way down into turn 2. They just trade paint a little bit down the back straight, and now here comes Jack Keithley as well in the number 33 car, trying to find his lane through as Brzezinski. Does he lose his position? No, he's able to hold on the inside, but look at the roadblock that Keithley has ahead of him.
It's Banky behind these two. Keithley's just a few seconds, a second ago behind. So it's Banky who's trying to take advantage of that. By the way, I did notice it at the time when Rietveld was coming out of pit road through turn 1. He got a real swap on. The back end came right out on pit exit. He was giving it absolutely everything, and he was determined to try and move forward, and he has moved forward now ahead of Brzezinski. He's finally made that move work.
Brzezinski following him close coming off of turn 6 though, so maybe there's a look, and it was just a look coming into the penultimate corner there. So Brzezinski just going to have to wait for now to see if he has any opportunity a little bit further down the line, but let's see if Rietveld can try to pull away from this pack just exactly as Lerner has done, for example. He's continuing to pull the gap on those cars behind after getting past, and now he's looking to try and track down the effective race leaders of Hasse and Gartner. Gartner, despite being on the fresher tyres, well, he's caught another 0.2 of a second up to Hasse here. He might even have a go in towards turn 2, but it was just a move to the inside there slightly for Hasse to try and cover off the line. But yeah, Gartner, he really needs to try and maximize the the couple lap delta on the tyres he has compared to Florian Hasse at the moment.
But that's it. I mean, we mentioned once you're about 3 or 4 laps into your stint, that's when the performance just drops off a little bit on those tyres. So he would have had about 2 laps where he would have had that advantage over Hasse out of pit road. But now they'll be pretty much even. They're both in the Audi. And well, Moritz Lerner, he's just loitering in the background. He's 3rd in line here. He's just trying to work his way forward. And this has just been absolutely brilliant from Lerner, this endurance race. It really has worked out for him so far. Payich, by the way, just to point out, Payich, who started pole position in his sprint race, he's back at the front of your field, but yet to make a pit stop. And he is about, what, he's going to be about 33, 34 seconds ahead of Florian Hasse.
Yeah, that seems to be about right, at least by my calculations. So last lap, he did a 128 flat, so 128.004 for all intents and purposes. And now, we'll compare that to Moritz Lerner. Lerner did just under a 128. He did a 127.966. So Payich, despite being on older tyres here, he has some good speeds. If he can keep this up and then get on the fresher tyres for the very end of the event, he can really perhaps make a charge through the field. But yeah, that's good signs right now for Payich in terms of lap time.
Well, he needs to stay out here now. He needs to go long in this stint because he's got the clear air there. He's got nobody in front of him. He's got nobody behind really challenging. Speaking of challenging, look at Lerner. He's really waltzed up to the back of these two, and he's giving it a go. You've got battling going on behind with Barner and Rietveld as well, so they're all a gaggle of cars together. This is really starting to get intense out there.
This is all the signs of another stellar drive from Moritz Lerner, but it's the execution now. How can he get past Gassner? And a little bit later on, how is he going to get past Florian Hasse if he even gets the opportunity to be able to do so? He needs to take one pass at a time here at the moment. With he got a good run over Gassner now this time, and now he can look to the outside in that Porsche to be able to try and get past up into turn number 2. But as soon as you pull out a line in that Porsche, it seems like all your straight line speed just goes away, and you're not able to get the extra half a car length required.
It's like somebody's just thrown a parachute out the back of the car to really slow it down. By the way, Rietveld and Brzezinski behind as well. They've been going side by side, and Banky's getting involved in this one. So too is Barner. It's Barner and Brzezinski almost rubbing door handles going through turn 3 into 4. In fact, there was a little bit of paint swapping. I want your paint, well, you can have mine if you want. As they go through 5, plunge downhill into 6. And well, Brzezinski, he's been quite assertive this race, hasn't he?
Yeah, that's probably fair to say, but losing the position from, or at least losing the battle with Martin Barner there in that situation. Ben Spanky also on the outside looking in, same with Jack Eathley now. He's been pretty quiet for what is usually a very impactful driver, so maybe look to see stuff happening with him a little bit later on in the event. Having a look back towards that sort of effectively leading pack, they've all closed up together, they're all nose to tail. Is this now the opportunity that Lerner needs to try and get by and try to capitalize on this one? Here we go, looking to the inside simultaneously as Gassner's looking to the outside of Florian Hasse. So it's a big old scrap here for all 3 podium positions as we get in towards towards the final 16 minutes of this race. Nothing doing in towards turn 2, but turn 3 is another opportunity for these guys. Again, another move to the outside for Gassner. So Gassner doesn't really seem to be all that concerned about Lerner. Might be his undoing though, as Lerner's able to stick it down the inside through this wrong right-hander, but it's the outside for the left.
Well, that's where, around this track, you really get an advantage being the 3rd car in such a close pack, because that car in front of you is so concerned with trying to overtake the car of Hasse. It's leaving doors open left and right throughout this venue. So it's giving that third car the opportunity of saying, right, he's been forced to the outside, I'll go to the inside here. And it almost paid out for Moritz, but not quite as they come out of that final corner. And now they've got to be careful, though, because the drivers behind Rietveld has got away from the scraps and from the battling. He's got clean air. He can get the foot down in that BMW, that Team Redline BMW, and start closing up to these cars in front.
He gained 0.6 of a second on that last lap, did Rietveld. So that's because all of these guys were battling so hard, and they'll continue to do it on the way up the hill into turn 2. And now Lohner's found the inside over Gassner. He's going to get the slipstream from Hasse as well. Hasse can really dictate who gets the slipstream and who doesn't here. He gives it to Lohner to try and get him by here as he's found his way down the inside there, and he gains the position. It's helpful when you have a little bit of help like that from your from your fellow competitor.
Yeah, absolutely. Hasse and Lohner, of course, fellow competitors for the same team, and yeah, they're working the way together. Now they need to not fight. They need to work together now to try and pull away from Gassner, because Gassner is going to be concerned with trying to get back past them. But I feel that those cars are just a little bit quicker than Gassner, and they can maybe drop him here. And they want to do that because Gassner will try and defend from Rietveld behind with all his might. We've got 3 other drivers on pit road getting their final pit stops out of the way. It'll be interesting to see how they sort of merge into the field here in this one. But the final 2, Pajic and Price, I said you go long if you're at the front with no traffic in front of you. That's exactly what Pajic is doing right now.
Yeah, some drivers committing to that very long strategy as we continue to watch this top 3 just try and figure out between them who's going to finish where. I think is probably the kindest way I can say it about them. But Moritz Lohner getting the speed then on the way down in towards turn number 3. But again, it's just the straight line speed statistics of the Porsche is not too great compared to the Audis that he's been battling with. So that's just what Lohner has been having to deal with, but hasn't he dealt with it so well?
Yeah, he's done a superb job out of all of that. I can tell you, just looking at your timing tower on the left-hand side, Banki's made it past Brzezinski now as well. So Brzezinski's going backwards a little bit in all of this battling. Doesn't seem to like it when he's getting embroiled in battles, getting door to door handle with people. Seems to be better, really, when he's out on his own, just putting laps in and getting that lap time in. So Brzezinski not having it all his way in this feature race.
No, he's not. So, you know, it's just one of those races sometimes where things just simply do not go your way, and I think that might be what's happening here to Brzezinski in the Williams Esports car. It's so unfortunate looking back towards the theoretical front of the field as Lohner again just close but no cigar into turn 2, and that's just been the story there for that Porsche for most of these laps, where if he was in a Bentley or an Audi or a BMW, then maybe, just maybe, he would be able to get alongside, but not at the moment. But he'll have a good opportunity of getting alongside this time into turn 3, but no, he's just going to bide his time. So this is a very calculated situation here for Moritz Lohner. He doesn't want to make the move too early, it seems.
I still think it would be a mistake to fight this early at this point of the race. I think he needs to wait until the final 5 minutes or so before he starts really putting the pressure on. Yeah, you keep the pressure on now as Pajic actually has come onto pit road, as well as Isaac Price. So they're making their pit stop here. So with 11 minutes remaining, the Mahle Racing team driver of Marko Pajic, he was a pole sitter. He's got the pace in the car. We know that. Where is he going to feed out into all of this traffic? The front 3 are definitely going to be these 3. I just don't know. He's making his way down pit road. Is he going to get involved in that battle with Banki and Brzezinski, I wonder?
Yeah, I have to wonder. He's going to come off of pit lane now. There he is. It looks like he is going to file back out into that battle. He's straight into it, in fact, coming off the pit lane. Oh, Dorniden just about holds on to it with a big slide coming through the first turn there, and Pejich just slots in behind Brzezinski.
I think Dorniden needs to change of underpants after that one. That was a big, big moment, that's for sure. But now, Pejich, what can he do here? Fresh tyres. The rest of these cars have been out there for quite a while now on their tyres, so they're going to be quite worn. Well, comparatively speaking anyway. He needs to pounce whilst the iron's hot. He really needs to make the most of this advantage for the next 3 or 4 laps. So we'll be keeping an eye on Pejich right now, but Hasse and Lerner, they're still together but not really making any moves. And I'll tell you what, Gassner has not been lost by that front two, so Gassner doing a good job in 3rd place.
Yeah, he's keeping himself in contention here at the moment as we continue to try and see if Pejich can make any progress. The tyres should just about be coming up to the operating window now. Coming towards the end of the outlap here, so maybe he can start making some progress on this lap and forwards. Speaking of forwards, there's the now actual race leaders. So Hasse, Lerner, Gassner, the 3 of them heading their way through turn number 1. Don't forget, Rietveld is also slowly but steadily gaining on these guys. He's been just sort of lurking there in the background, just working on his lap times, and he's done a very, very good job at it at the moment. Still no move from Lerner, though, in towards turn number 2. Of course, it is his teammate ahead of him. I know this is not a team's championship, but you know, you can work together somewhat, and you can be maybe a little bit more respectful between each other in this one. As Boris Lerner, the last thing he wants to do is to have a fight with Hasse, and then cause Hasse to lose a position to Gassner.
Exactly. So you've got to think that. You've also got to think your own championship, because if you get embroiled in a battle, you could end up losing multiple places. You could end up with a contact or something like that, especially with Gassner being so close. You just can't really play that risk. This is where Lerner really comes into his own. That thinking driver, thinking about the championship already and saying, right, I'm in a really good place here in 2nd place. I'm getting some really, really good points here. Let's think about the long game and think about the championship here. Whereas Hasse didn't have the best of times last time out at Oschersleben. Oh, they're not the best of times for Lerner at that final corner either, because Gassner really getting up to the diffuser of that car in front.
Like you said, though, Lerner's still in a pretty good spot. His closest competitor in the points, Jacob Brzezinski, down in P7. Wisniewski, absolutely nowhere to be seen.
15th.
Yeah, at the moment. Pejich, well, he's down in P8. So Lerner, he, by finishing where he is right now, is still gaining a whole bunch of points on his closest competitor. Of course, you want to maximize that as much as possible, but this race win isn't as crucial as it perhaps otherwise would have been. But we would still love to see the battle, and I think Lerner might be tempted to give it.
He will, but I think he's playing that waiting game. He needs to play that waiting game because, yes, it is a teammate in front of you, but also, you don't want to give those drivers behind an opportunity. Speaking of opportunities, Barna, Banki, Brzezinski, Pejich, they're all together on the timing screen, and they're absolutely giving it hell for leather. And speaking of which, here we are now looking at them. They're just going at it hammer and tongs. This is great stuff out there, and that's for your 5th down.
Yeah, it really is great to see these guys having the fights that we kind of really expected that they would have a little bit later on in this event due to the differences in terms of the strategy. As you can see, Pejich there in the thick of things, trying to get positions sorted out on the fresher tyres. Let's see if he can make any progress in the final 6 minutes of this race then, shall we? Let's have a look back towards the front, because Lerner now has a run on Florian Hasse. He's had the most obvious run that he's ever had in this battle for the race lead, but he's still not going to go for it. He knows exactly the plan, and he's keeping to it. But look at that, though. Rietveld, as a result of them not quite swapping and slingshotting off of each other, Rietveld has really, really caught them up now.
Yeah, he's onto the back of them. He is a threat here in this battle, because we've seen just how aggressive and how hard Rietveld will drive in that Team Redline car. Page still just not able to make the advantage work with that fresher rubber, and he's stuck. He's stuck in 8th place. I mean, it is an improvement from where he was before the pit stop started, but it'll be so frustrating for him because he knows he's got the pace in that car.
Yeah, it's just a good couple of very large Bentleys ahead of the relatively small Porsche at the moment, and it seems like it's an insurmountable wall. He might be able to dive down the inside here at the penultimate corner. No, he's just going to stay in line and just keep with it at the moment. It must be one of the most frustrating things ever when you, like you said, when you have the advantage. Oh, Page gets the back end out through the final corner, and look at how many positions he's losing.
And Page and Turn 8 at Austria are not a match made in heaven, that is for sure, as they head on through. So there's been big changes there further down. Still at the front, they're staying line astern. They're not going to change for the time being. Meanwhile, Brzezinski and Banki, this is a battle that's going to go on for eternity. If you had unlimited fuel and unlimited time in a race, these two, I reckon, would just be fighting every single lap of that race.
Yeah, I get that very same feeling as well. Brzezinski looking for the cut back through turn 3. Gets to the inside through the long right-hander. Bentley versus Bentley action here in the last few laps of this ADAC GT Masters Esports Championship at the Red Bull Ring for round number 2. Oh, he saw what Brzezinski was trying to do, trying to find the inside for turn 5, but unsuccessful that time around. Let's have a look back towards the front, because Rietveld looking to try and make some moves here. So he's caught out the gap, he's put the good lap times down, now he's on the back of the train in terms of the race lead. Let's see how far forward he can get, because Gassner looking at least relatively vulnerable at the moment.
He certainly is, and the driver who was on pole position, look at that, to the inside. He's going to be compromised on the exit. This is where Rietveld needs to take advantage now. He'll have the speed advantage heading up towards turn 2. And Gassner, he was compromised with that defensive move into 1. And that's where it could cost you a little bit of rubbing. Oh, they're battling with each other. It's paint swapping. And still he keeps Rietveld behind. But I think that was a little bit naughty to try and squeeze Rietveld off.
Yeah, it was a little bit, but look how much time it's lost them compared to the race leaders here. Down in towards turn number 3, it's lost them about a second. Just that entire sequence alone has lost them a second to Hasser and Lohner here. So it changes the complexion in terms of the battle for the race lead now, because it is right now at least only between the two teammates, because these guys are a little bit too far back to really threaten them. That's just how things can change in, what, 3 seconds?
Yeah, just that one move, that one mistake, that defensive move into turn 1, and then the very aggressive defensive move into turn 2 has really allowed that front 2 to move clear. And, well, Rietveld looking to get the run at this corner. I reckon 2 laps remaining. Oh, Gassner was all over the curb and looked a bit loose, but hangs on to it. We should have about 2 laps remaining in this race.
We should do. There's the battle for the race lead. Well, it hasn't been much of a battle, but let's see if Lohner turns it into one with his teammates. It's the Dor Esports P1, P2, and now Lohner looks to make the move around the outside on his teammate. It's the Audi versus the Porsche from Dor Esports coming through turn 2, and it's Hasser that's able to maintain his position ahead of Lohner for the moment. Will Lohner have another attempt here down in towards turn number 3? He certainly has the speed to be able to do so. Forces the Audi to go defensive as the Porsche commits to the outside once again. Lohner really wants to try and get this race lead away from his teammate, and certainly they would have lost between the two of them.
And you notice as soon as they got that gap over the cars behind, that's when they attacked. That's why they are teammates. That's why they weren't really attacking or defending each other to start with when Gassner and when Rietveld were close together. Now they've been able to pull away. that's where the gloves come off here. And Moritz, he wants another win in this season of the championship. He doesn't want to go with just a single race win in this championship. Launches over the inside curb of the final corner. It's not the ideal line, as we saw in the track guide before the first race here. But last lap here, Connery. Well, the gloves are definitely off now.
Here we go then. Final lap. Final time into turn number 2. What's the run like for Moritz Lohner? There's a battle for P3 behind between Gassner and Rietveld as well, but we want to focus on this battle for the race lead because they're going to go door to door once again up into turn 2. Lohner wasn't successful last time. Is he successful this time? The answer is going to be no. So he's now got to look for that opportunity down in towards turn number 3 now on his teammate. Hasse versus Lohner. This has been a fantastic battle in the dying laps of this race. Lohner once again trying to commit to the outside. He just has to carry the speed and have a nose in for the left-handers in the middle of the lap, but he hasn't been successful in doing that at all. He forces Hasse to cover off the inside there in towards turn 4. Now, coming out of turn 4 into turn 5, Hasse looks like his chances of winning this race has gone up exponentially by holding on into turn 2 and turn 3. But now coming out of turn 6, there is theoretically an opportunity into the penultimate and final corners here, but it would require a massive effort and perhaps a mistake from Hasse, as Lohner has no other option but to follow as closely as possible through the final turn and look to try and get the draft off. It's going to be another little sprint to the line. They're going to get door to door, but in the end, by less than a tenth of a second, Florian Hasse wins the endurance race here for round number 2 of the ADAC GT Masters Esports Championship at the Red Bull Ring.
Wow. Wow, what a finish. Absolutely sensational end there. Moritz Lohner, it was about 58 thousandths of a second, should I say, between the two of them at the line there. Absolutely tremendous stuff from the two teammates, but Hasse, they did well there. Controlled the car, controlled that position, and made the strategy work. So great stuff. And Gassner as well, able to hold on to that third place.
Yeah, you can see the official, the official gap there at the very end of the event. That is 52 thousandths of a second between the two teammates, Hasse and Lohner. Lohner just about almost got there, but no opportunities into the final, into the turn 2 and into turn 3 meant that he was always going to be up against it coming into the latter end of the lap. You can see Gassner did hold on to P3 over Rietveld, by the way. Fantastic job for him to come away with a huge haul of points after starting reverse grid pole position. You can see the positions further down the order. Wisniewski not having a great day there down in P14. And a couple of other drivers further down the order. Nesta Garcia also having problems here today. But, well, that's it in terms of the racing. My word, what amazing racing it has been as well. I saw the plan form in Lohner's head there towards the end. He knew he didn't want to make the move too early. He didn't want to have an extended battle for 5 laps with his teammate because it would just mean the guys behind were able to catch up and to make their lives more difficult. He waited for that gap to appear and then decided to go for the moves. But again, those moves were not successful, and Hasse was able to hold on to his teammate, who was 2 more championships than him.
Certainly, and it showed how that inside line was so powerful. You know, Moritz Lohner in all of the races here this week, they were only able to make that outside line move work once, and that was in the sprint race right at the start. So really, it just showed it was the place to be was the inside into 2 and the inside into 3, and yeah, it was absolutely tremendous stuff from Moritz to try and push all the way. But Florian Hasse has a little tip of the hat there. Great defensive display. Yes, they are teammates, but as you mentioned in that commentary, there's no team's championship in all of this. Everyone wants to win that championship and the big prize.
And we saw it at the very end there. It didn't matter that they were both from Bull Esports. It was just like, you just put a different livery on one of them, and you would have believed they were from two different teams there at the very end of the race. So it's great stuff between those two. Like I said at the end there, great job with Gassner as well. Reverse grip pole position, still able to come home on the podium. That's really good going, at least if you ask me. So yeah, a lot of standout performances here today. Of course, Lona being the main one. Hasse to holding on to that P1 somehow, despite every single effort that Lona was trying to throw at him. So this does make the championship a little interesting now coming in towards the third round, because Lona, I think, would mathematically come out in terms of points, on top in terms of points coming into round number 3 because of Brzezinski's not too great races. But Florian Hasse now has gotten his championship back on track with a race win in the endurance race today. A couple of the drivers further down the order, Rietveld having a pretty good day here today compared to Oschersleben as well. So, again, at the end of the day, any one of these top, I would say, 6-7 drivers on a good day can win a race, be it the sprint race or the endurance race, maybe if not more.
I mean, to me, we still really can't look at this championship. It's just too close to start with here. As I said, round 3, round 4, that's when we can start looking at the championship and say, right, who is the ones who are going to be fighting for that? But yes, you're absolutely right. It's not just going to be a case of 1 or 2 drivers running away with all the race wins. This championship genuinely has a good 2 handfuls of drivers who can win races here in this championship. It shows how close that series is.
I had it come through. Remember back to when I said at the start of that race well, it was start of the GT4 race where I potentially saw a jump start, but we also potentially might have had a jump start here in the feature event. And guess who? Hasse. Under investigation, so he might not be able to hold on to that race win. They said at the time it would be investigated after the race, so we'll have to wait and see if Hasse has gotten himself a penalty for that jump start, which would mean he does not hold on to that race win, because that would be a time penalty applied after.
All I can say is keep an eye on the website and look out for the latest news about this series, because there's always something going on even after the race. Of course, we always have to say results are provisional. We have got live race stewards. They made that decision to say, right, we're going to investigate that afterwards. Right, we're after the race. Let's be patient. Wait, make sure that the correct decision is made. It could be that they'll look at it and say it was just inside that allowance that they would allow.
Also, if you're looking to try and keep track of both our fastest lap award and pole position award, of course, Page got himself the pole position award from a little bit earlier on. But for our Faber Exposize fastest lap awards, well, Isaac Price gets himself the fastest lap of the race. So that's an interesting one. Someone who we didn't see compete in those top couple of spots, coming away with the fastest lap award. I think he possibly might have come down a little bit later and got the fresher tyres and the slipstream to be able to make that happen later on.
He came into the pits at the same time as Payet, right at the end of the pit stop window. So he had that fresh rubber, was able to make it work for him. And ended up in about 12th position in that final race. But yeah, you take your advantage and really go for it. So yeah, fastest lap prize at Price. Really good job for him.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm trying to delay and waiting with bated breath for a potential result on the on the Florian Hasse situation, but I don't know how long that decision process is going to take. So we'll continue to talk for a little bit here, but if they don't have a result for us soon, then we might have to end it here, and then you'll have to look at the both the ADAC GT Masters social media and the RaceRoom social media to sort of get the lowdown on what the situation is with regards to that. I don't want that really to spoil what was an absolutely crazy event, though.
It was tremendous. I mean, it was a really, really clean race start to race 2. I was really happy with how everyone was able to go battling, but battling fair and not causing any sort of major incidents on that lap 1. And yeah, again, it was that smart driving by Hasse and Lerner, realizing that you don't really attack each other early. whilst you've got cars behind you, really close behind you, as soon as Gassner and Rietveld started battling and they got that 1.5 gap, that was the tipping point. That was where Lerner says, right, let's go for it. Let's try and get a race win here. And that's where he really pushed on and put those attacking moves on. Didn't quite happen on the track.
Yeah, it didn't quite, but almost. It was less than 1/10 of a second at the line there, and it's just as close as you like when it comes to a race finish here. But unfortunately, that is going to be all that we have time for here today. Of course, still waiting for that pending investigation from Florian Haas's jump start. Right now, he will keep the race win here in the endurance race, but make sure you pay attention to the social media to check if that continues into this evening. We'll have to see what the stewards' results or decision is with regards to that. But from myself, Connery Maddock, I've been joined by my wonderful commentary partner, that is Paul Smith, and we'll see you guys in just about a month's time for round number 3 of the ADAC GT Masters Esports Championship, powered by MBW Mobility Plus. Good night, folks.